All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock the next 4 hours. We've got you. A lot of stuff to get into today. We'll talk a lot of football, obviously, as the draft wraps up, but our conversation around the draft does not wrap up. Rookie minicamp coming up this weekend, and then some more OTAs, some Met Gala, some Derby parties, if you're the Mahomes family. What a week for them, right? What a week. You get the wide receiver you wanted. You get to draft a second-round pick if you're Patrick. You get to play GM a little bit. You head to the Met Gala last night. You're going to the Barnstable Brown party on Friday, pre-Derby, which is a very exclusive club with like the celebrity of celebrities that go to the Derby. Very few get invited there. They're going. They're on the very star-studded guest list. And then the Derby, which will be an experience that nobody else gets to experience the Derby like the Mahomes family will experience it. I can't imagine what that would be like to fly in with the private plane and then to watch the Derby from Millionaire's Row, or Millionaire's Row is actually a level below the mansion. Sorry, Millionaire's Row.
The level above Millionaire's Row.
That's right, which is deemed the mansion, which oddly enough is where the media used to sit. By the way, that's how great the seats were for the media back in the day at Churchill, is that they then put the media somewhere else, which makes sense. I was shocked where the media was when I got there. Like, we get the whole upstairs right over the finish line? This is amazing. And now it's called the Mansion, where the celebrities of celebrities go and watch the Derby from. And that's coming up on Friday and Saturday for Patrick and Brittany. What a week for them.
Do we think that they are aware there's a Kansas City horse that won the Derby once?
They probably are not aware. And I do wonder how much money will be gambled by Patrick and Brittany on Friday in the Oaks and Saturday in the Derby. More than I will probably place on that. And I'll just say that the money I lose will be much more substantial to my wallet than the money he loses. And it will not even compare to pennies a drop in the ocean of what he will be gambling. I always like winning on the Derby, but then actually losing money. It's always great when that happens.
At some point, I think when you're rich enough, the form of gambling is just buying a horse, if not a stable, and starting your own, and this seems like this would be up Mahomes' alley, just starting your own little horse empire.
I was thinking about that the other day when I saw the guest list for the Barnstable Brown and that he's going to the Derby. I hadn't heard that he had been to the Derby in the last few years, right?
Yeah,
I don't remember there being a story of Mahomes or seeing him on TV. When you're watching Derby coverage on NBC this weekend, there will be shots of Patrick and Brittany in the red carpet because Derby has a red carpet as well for the celebrities to show up because it turns out a pretty big event. And I do wonder, like once you get there, you get an itch. You get an itch for it, and he's got the money. The old saying is don't invest in something where you have to feed constantly.
That seems like a good bit of advice.
Unless it's your children, right?
Yeah, well,
I
said something good advice before the caveat.
But horses and race horses that you've got to train and feed and stable and race and then pay for the trainers, pay for the jockeys, pay for all the travel. It is an incredibly expensive endeavor that very few people can actually partake in, but the Mahomes, they could. And you wonder if, all it takes is Brittany getting an itch of, this is fun, we should own a horse. Okay. And then they're horse owners. and then this is Mahomes' horse that's racing in the 6th at Santa Anita. Why don't we, let's watch the Sterling Bronze, the number 7 horse that post time is 4:45 on the 6th race at Santa Anita. Well, let's see what happens.
See, the only thing I've been doing for the last 5 minutes is trying to come up with what the names of these horses would be, and I don't have one yet. If you want to play off the Sterling Bronze thing, you can just name a horse Precious Metals. That feels like
boom. That's much better.
That's one.
That's like the Juice Canseco yesterday. I say it, you perfect it.
See, I think this is a sustainable system here.
That's right.
So you've got Precious Metals. I really wanted to get something sort of more football analogous, kind of to the whole career of everything. I think if we could just name one of them Wasp, you'd always have time to run Wasp. Think about it. Those are my 2, and that is the extent of my 2.
We got an off week this week. Do we have time to run Wasp?
You can ask that question as much as you want now.
Man, that's great.
Definitely be the 15 horse.
Gotta be the 15 horse. Gotta be.
You got a race in a race that's got 15 horses, so very rare. I mean, Derby will have that. Oh, I bet they'll own a filly or 2.
Ooh, there it is.
Because that's the Oaks.
There it is.
Yeah.
You gotta. Well, and Patrick Mahomes already owns filly.
Yeah, I don't own a filly. That's the tie-in. See, I got one.
I like that one a lot.
I got one. So they'll own a filly because Friday the Oaks is when the females run.
What if we just named one of them Joe Burrow? Imagine that being the most aggressive, bougie trash talk in history.
No, they got to name one of those horses the Apple Pack, and it can smoke the other horses.
Ooh, that's good.
Smoking that Eli Apple Pack. Smoking that Joe Burrow.
I don't know if this is the name of the horse or just the catchphrase, but Let's Ride belongs to Patrick Mahomes now. You own that Bronco.
Yeah. I mean, a horse named Corn Dog would be fun because a lot of people would put money on it just for S's and G's. A horse named like Lombardi or something like that.
Yeah.
2X champ.
John Elway.
Snow Globe.
Snow Globe is good.
Catch 'em all.
They've got to be unique, right? They can't be like registered names to any. You can't name a horse Secretariat now, right?
No, you cannot. That is absolutely true. Yes.
So we're gonna have to I'm gonna see. Is there a searchable directory of available horse names? How do I do this?
No.
Believe it or not, I've never looked into buying and starting my own racing horse stable.
The horse names are what you submit to the racing commission for them to approve it. So there's not like a bunch of names that you can choose from. Well, I'll take this one. A lot of them are based on the lineage of the horses that they are sired or born from. But you can really just name it.
I've got
a lot
an
of that is,
article,
especially if they're Derby horses, you want to name them after that so people know this is also this is from the lineage is also a Derby horse. So you want to name it to keep it in the family.
Precious Metal was a chestnut gelding born in 2008, New York bred.
Oh, it was a gelding, though. What's the point? What's
What
the
a
point?
waste.
Yeah,
I
what a
think.
waste. Yeah, then you can't breed them.
So I've
You
got
can't put them out to stud.
got some names here from this year's Derby. Angel of Empire, Forte.
Forte is
That's-
going to be the betting favorite.
That's pretty good.
When the when the opening lines come out, tomorrow when they do the post position draw, Forte is expected to be the betting favorite.
Rocket Can sounds sort of like an ad for a mortgage company. Lord Miles, I like that you could just
Interesting.
call a horse Lord.
Yeah.
Practical Move,
Yeah.
Hit Show.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can do better than almost all of these.
Well, one of
we
them
already
is
have.
one of them is Tap It, right? There's a Tap It in there, and then
There,
that's
tap it.
it's a lineage of a horse. It's something like that. There's a lineage of a horse. I haven't really done much research.
Tap it Trice.
Tap It Trice. Yeah, that's Tap It was a Derby horse a number of years ago. So that is obviously a horse from that was born roughly 3 years ago. I can tell you that. That horse was born roughly 3 years ago because they're all 3-year-olds.
What if you name your horse Kentucky Derby Champion? Think about it. Think about what that would do to the Matrix.
Snow Globe is also taken.
What about Kentucky Derby Champion?
Yeah, that's been taken by about 150 different horses.
What if you call it Winner of the Kentucky Derby 2026?
Seems a little wordy. I think there are a few too many letters in there. You're going to have to make an acronym out of that one. What about Corn Dog? Is that one taken?
Wasp is.
No!
I'm looking for Corn Dog now.
How is there a horse named Wasp?
What about like Liv? You know,
Oh, yeah,
those Super
Liv,
Bowl
L-I-
initials?
L-I-V,
That's
yep,
probably
Liv.
taken. There's probably been a horse named Liv, lowercase, like Olivia or something. Puh.
Yeah. Named after somebody's daughter.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course.
stupid. As opposed to something cool like a Super Bowl.
And of course, if you're the daughter of a horse owner, you've got a lot of things going on in your life. I think the last thing you need is a freaking horse named after
Yeah, I
you.
don't think that
Oh,
helps.
hey, that's my horse. Really? Is it right next to your Maserati?
Corn Dog was foaled May 29th, 2006.
Oh, man.
We were so close to 2008 was... What, Wasp was 2008?
We are so behind the
2006
curve
is Corn Dog? That's too bad.
here. Is there a chance Andy Reid is going to old racehorses to name his plays? Maybe we can predict. Drake, give me another horse that was sired in 2008.
Is there a Rose Bowl?
Oh, I bet
they
there
did
is.
the little spin pirouette thingy.
I bet there's a Rose Bowl.
Rose Bowl, right?
I bet
Something like
there's
that?
an Ash Ketchum or something. There's definitely some Pokemon ones.
Yeah.
Rose Bowl, the horse, has a Wikipedia page.
Oh, my goodness. And that's a pretty famous one, probably, if it's got its own Wikipedia page.
All right. Hey, text line. This is what you were born for. I'm going to open up the Twitch, too.
Yeah.
We'll just take submissions throughout the show. I'm going to write down the good ones.
I'm going to open up the text line. And we don't need submissions of stop doing this because that's not going to help.
that name was taken by a horse
Yeah.
in
It's not
1992.
going to help. Pat my horse.
Pat Mastable.
You can just call one Broncos because he's continued to own them.
I like that.
Grim Reaper.
Feels like that's probably been taken now. I'm realizing how incredible the width and breadth of the horse naming convention is. Can you name one Tyreek? Just F it. Tyreek's down there somewhere, hopefully near the front of the pack. I can't see anymore.
I like this one. Horse named Emotional Intelligence.
That one's
Has
pretty
nothing
good.
to do with Mahomes, but we love it.
Tell you what.
Grim Reaper foaled March 26, 1994.
At least it's an older one.
Kentucky-based horse won $250,000.
How about that? PM2. Could be a horse just named PM2. How about a horse actually named Jet Chip Wasp?
That's got to be available.
So Jet Chip.
I like it.
What are the odds of it? Thank you, Texter. What are the all of these that I'm saying are from Texters, not from my mind, from the Texter's mind. We are coming together and brainstorming all together. A horse just simply named Jet Chip Wasp.
I don't know that this was ever the name of a racehorse, but I have now found a headline on Horse Illustrated magazine. Equine emotional intelligence.
Oh, son of a gun.
So we can just learn about how emotionally intelligent horses are.
How about this one? I'm going to use a text, but I'm going to spin it for a horse's name.
Yes.
Jabroni.
Whoa, how about Japoni?
Damn it. Again, it's right there. That's like...
We're just playing pickleball, man. We're just doink,
three in the
doink,
last-
doink, doink, doink,
Yeah,
doink.
but I feel like I'm losing. Like I
Nah.
might be getting assists, but I don't want to be Chris Paul because your groin comes and affects you throughout the game.
Also, you're about 10 years younger, I think.
But the text did say, it said, I can't wait to see the play Reed puts in against Cincy this year called Jabroni.
Oh man, how? Okay, what's the play design of Burrowhead? Is that a Blake Bell quarterback sneak? Is that why he's on the roster?
Burrowhead. We see y'all in Burrowhead.
How intelligent is a horse really? What about emotional intelligence?
Do horses know they're running? Like, do they realize that they're racing, or is it just like, he wants me to go faster. He wants me to go faster. He wants me to slow up. He wants me to pace.
Why is this little guy hitting me so much?
I'm pacing. I'm pacing. I'm going faster. I'm going faster. I'm going. Hey, you, are you running fast too? You're running fast too. Look at us. We're all running fast. Where are you going? You're running. Hey, come here. Get back here. Get back. I can't catch up. Why are you hitting me? I'm done. I'm out. I can't do it anymore. I can't. Why is everybody pass? Hey guys, where you go? Oh, we're all slowing down now. Oh, okay. Hey, we're gonna go eat.
Oats.
Hungry pig, right?
Ooh.
Competitive prick.
That's pretty good, too.
BMA, Burrowhead my ass.
I think just spell that one all out. Maybe one word even.
Burrowhead my ass. We see y'all at Burrowhead. Who was it that, was it Hilton?
It sounds like you're doing a loose Jerick McKinnon impression, which
No,
I know
it's-
is not what you're doing.
No,
but
it's the actual Bengals.
Yeah, I know. I just can't
player
remember.
That looked in the camera and said, "We see y'all at Burrowhead."
Hilton sounds right.
Mike Hilton.
Yeah, I think that's right.
13 seconds. Well, Rick Pitino already has a horse called 15 seconds, so I'm not sure that it's a play on that one.
So you got to that one before I could even wind up. Yeah, Mike Hilton. Name it Mike Hilton.
We see y'all at Burrowhead. Warpaint. There's already a horse named Warpaint. We know
Right,
that
yeah.
quite literally. I don't know if it's a racehorse
From
or
Twitch. What about either Beat Nickel or Mama Kelsey? What could we just call it? Could you name a horse Donna Kelsey? Would she
Yes.
appreciate that? I would appreciate it if somebody named a horse after me.
not. I don't know if I've said this or not, but there's a few of them that come in. Competitive prick.
Yep.
Okay, I didn't.
Yep.
I don't remember if I said that or not.
We're-
I've said so many.
There's so many. It's
just
a good.
throwing
no,
them out there.
It's a good one.
Big Red.
Big Red is pretty good.
Yeah, I like that one.
Chiefsaholic.
Horse named You Can't Make That Call There.
War Paint, born in '91, won $37,000 over his career.
Wow.
An entire career only made $37,000.
Sounds like me.
And that ends the radio. That ends the bit. Text says blue 80. Yellow, yellow. Yellow, yellow. Orange. Yellow, yellow. All right, 913-912-4810 is the text line in case people did not know that already. So let's go ahead and start where we wanted to start, which is right here at 10:21. Let's start the show. Just random, the Met Gala last night.
Were you a little bit surprised when those pictures started coming out? I see Met Gala fashion stuff on my Twitter timeline every once in a while. I was like, oh, that's a pretty big call up for the Mahomeses.
Yeah, Stephon Diggs was there last night. I did not know Stephon Diggs was there last night. I was looking through some of the other ones, and so it was like Mahomes and Diggs. I couldn't find any other NFL players.
There was
that
at
were on
least
that.
a couple of NBA guys, I think.
Yeah,
I think SGA might have been there.
Westbrook was there.
Oh, that makes sense.
Russell Westbrook. Those that aren't playing anymore. Devin Booker was not there.
Devin Booker was not there because he is still currently, as of right now, playing.
Chris Paul could have made it there.
Could have been there.
Maybe that's what he was doing. It's like, oh man, I'm hurt. Let me go head over to the Met Gala. I also thought, as a quick aside, I know it's fun to try to dunk on the Bengals right now. And the Bengals social media said, here's our submission for the Met Gala next year. And it was pictures of the different drips that the players were wearing into games and stuff. And then everybody just started dunking on them like, oh, I actually didn't think that was a big deal. I thought, I don't think that had anything to do with Mahomes or Diggs. It was just, hey, Joe Burrow's pretty freaking fashionable. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like that's the way I read it, is like, I'm surprised Joe Burrow wasn't there. He's incredibly if Stephon Diggs is there, then it's not just like, okay, Mahomes or Brady.
Yes.
Stephon Diggs is there, okay? Nothing against Stephon Diggs. But if Stephon Diggs is there, then Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and those players can be there too. Joe Burrow was kind of known for the different fashion that he wears to games, different types of fashion. Like Mahomes is fashion as in like really rich, sophisticated business CEO. Joe Burrow is sort of like younger, hip, I own the club, while also partaking and enjoying being there and wearing some different outfits that would be fun to wear and show that I've got some money.
And also,
It's a different type of style.
not to spoil the fun, but man, what else is the Cincinnati Bengals social media team supposed to do in early May? This is the rest of the next couple of months are just going to be social media managers tweeting out pics of the game day fits.
I thought that was a little bit where Chiefs fans can be a little much.
Did Chiefs fans really get
Man,
aggressive about it?
They got really aggressive on the Bengals. Like, you just try to be like Mahomes. How about win something first? Like, what has Stephon Diggs ever won? I totally get it. Whatever. Texas Kurt Lightning. No. Sucre Waladowski.
Wow. Okay, we're getting into a good territory here, and ones that are probably not taken because I think that these are made up names recently.
There's zero chance Sucre Waladowski is taken. Also, Tex says, do it, Kels.
Ooh.
There we go.
Even just call it Kels.
Kels.
And then you can yell that at the horse.
Yep, that's right. All right, 913-912-4810.
This was a great segment. When does the show start?
We're waiting. Drake, are we on yet?
Drake,
let me
have
know.
you played the intro
There's a
yet?
couple minutes still.
I didn't hear it. Okay.
Okay,
great.
cool. So we got a couple more minutes.
So I can curse now too, right?
So make sure we don't do that in the first segment. Let's actually get into a lot of things we're
can
going to talk
once.
about.
I can get one?
And
Hell
then
yeah.
More opportunities
Did
after
you hear the offensive coordinator for SMU this morning with St. John
no.
and Nate? Oh, I marked it for Friday.
Thank goodness.
They were talking about Mahomes, and he's down in Dallas at SMU, and sort of like all these different quarterbacks that are coming up and trying to be a little bit like Mahomes. You know, it's like, yeah, you can't make that play, and then guys just play breaking down and trying to play some backyard football or leaving a clean pocket so you can play some backyard football, things like that. And he said, well, you get these kids, and players that are running around making Shane up. But he didn't say Shane. And he goes, what? Sorry, can I say that? And St. John goes, you just did? So, yes, he dropped an S-bomb just like, well, you got, running around making bleep up. Like, marked for Friday. Thank you.
He's right.
So we got Joe Klanderman saying that Felix and Udike Uzama had the biggest butt he'd ever seen. And we've got the OC for SMU dropping an S-bomb on the air. We are really getting into the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts of breaking these players down. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll come back. I do want to get into the Tyreek Hill trade. An update on the Tyreek Hill trade. I spent too much time trying to figure out all of the matrix of the Zach Galifianakis gif of all the numbers floating through his mind, and then sort of like it's an FBI investigative wall that has the thumbtacks that have all the strings connected everywhere.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I was doing last night for too long, trying to connect these, and this is what they gave up, and then that, but then this was for that, and then you go and take this. Well, this was pick 122, but 122 was used with this. Well, therefore, then the Chiefs doing their own thing, so that has to be part of the Tyreek Hill trade away to get something back, to try to organize it in a more simplistic way of where we are at currently with the Tyreek Hill trade that is not over until next year's draft, because they got a 5th round for next year's draft with pick 178 in this year's draft that they got from the Dolphins. So Brett Veach does not want this Tyreek Hill trade to ever end.
And when we come back, we'll ask the question, do the Chiefs regret the Tyreek Hill trade? Yay or nay?
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
The Royals are set to return to the K this week for a long homestand, and when you need tickets, be sure to check out Tickets for Less. As an official partner of the Kansas City Royals, Tickets for Less has the best selection of tickets without added service tickets fees on any order. Tickets for Less also has great seats available for the biggest upcoming events, including Monster Jam, the KC Current, and so much more. Shop now and save with the promo code 810. That's promo code 810 at ticketsforless.com.
Celebrate Taco Tuesday the Boulevard way with a squeeze of lime and
I do like this tweet. Steve Dart tweets in and says, old joke. What's the fastest way to become a millionaire? Start as a billionaire and buy some horses.
It's
buy
a good
race
joke.
horses. That is so true. I think. I don't know. I doubt it's true. But, you know.
That's what happened to all my money.
It might be true. It may not be true. Not sure. Texts are saying, boy, you're really beating a dead horse with this.
Dang it.
Text says, a horse name. How's my wife unpopular when I'm Patrick Mahomes?
A little wordy,
Yeah, but
but I
get
like
it.
the idea.
I get it. But you're also letting everybody know nationally, like, hey, give it a rest.
Chill out, everybody. Hey, what if Patrick Mahomes, buy a horse, name it, hey guys, chill.
Yeah,
I would root for that horse.
right.
Hey, relax.
I've been dating her since I was on the JV team. Horse name. She might be the only one that loves me for me and not my money.
Horse name. Hey, get out of here.
Horse name. I guess you're just admitting that you're settling for your wife because you're saying if you had a lot of money, you would not be with your wife. In the that's gate 3. It's an odd name, but
if I could
can't imagine Larry Colmus and Tappets on the inside, written by Calvin Burrell on the outside. It's, I guess you're saying that if you had a lot of money, you were just settling for your wife, therefore you would trade up for a new wife if you had a lot of money. And it's Culprit on the outside passing. I guess you're saying that if you had a lot of money, you just settled for your wife, therefore you would trade up for your wife. And Culprit on the inside, Calvin Burrell taking the rail, and he's going to win by a nose. And coming in second place is Culprit, third place. I guess if you had a lot of money, you'd be trading up for your wife. You're saying that you settled because you would want a different wife if you had a lot of money. What a great horse. That is very wordy.
Excellently executed, though.
Thank you.
Exactly the bit that I was thinking. I wish I could just figure out how to land that bit, and you did it.
Larry Colmus had one of the most famous horse racing duels down the stretch. That was 2 horses, true story. One by the name of My Wife Knows Everything. Another by the name of My Wife Doesn't Know. And my wife knows everything on the inside, and my wife doesn't know is now on the outside. Going down the stretch with those one furlong to go. My wife knows everything. My wife knows everything is pulling away. No, now here my wife knows nothing.
Did he also do the hoof-hearted?
That's a real one.
Is that his call?
Tex says relax is a horse name for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
That's probably true. All right, the Tyreek Hill trade.
Relax on the inside, pass out by ayahuasca.
So the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, as most people know. They got back in that trade pick number 29, first rounder last year. Pick number 50, second rounder last year. Pick number 121, fourth rounder last year. Pick number 122, fourth rounder this year. And pick number 178, a sixth rounder this year. Those are the 5 selections they got for Tyreek Hill. First, second, fourth, sixth. Now, none of them, not a one, was actually used to select one player. Thank you, Brett Veach, to help us keep track of the Tyreek Hill trade. He is just trying to make it as convoluted as possible so people will never know, did we win the trade? Did we lose the trade? So I spent too much time trying to connect all of these different dots that are out there to figure out what the update, to try to organize it in a way to see where the 2 teams are. Would you make the deal again if you know these are the players? Now, there are some things you can't quantify. Like, say, for instance, if they did not trade Tyreek Hill last year and they're sitting at pick number 30. And if they're sitting at pick number 30 and Charvarius Ward has walked and they've got Snead and Fenton as their cornerbacks, they clearly wanted cornerbacks because they took one in the 1st, the 4th, and the 7th. And if you're sitting there at 30 and you don't have the ammunition to package something to go up and maybe get a Trent McDuffie, maybe they're looking at it and saying, we need depth, we need more players. If they're looking at cornerback only, imagine a world where Trent McDuffie goes to the Bills and the Chiefs needing a cornerback take Kaiir Elam in the first round. That means they would not have McDuffie or George Karlaftis, and they would have a cornerback who underachieved this year as a first rounder. But having that ammunition, they were able to leapfrog the Bills to go get McDuffie. The Bills then took Kaiir Elam. The Bills are still in the market for cornerbacks because of that, which is the boat the Chiefs would be in. Now, maybe they would be coached up a little bit better. You never know.
And that's an interesting part of it.
Right.
This coaching staff's done a pretty good job.
Yeah, who knows what Kaiir Elam will look like. I was listening to the Athletic Football Show.
Hey,
you should check it out.
I'll check that
out. They were going through their day 2 live, so that podcast, so it's all, and they talked about Wanya Morris, and they said, boy, what a great spot for him to go to because Andy Heck and Andy Reid will maximize, they will get the most out of him. And if you're Wanya Morris, you've got length, you've got athleticism, you've got some issues there that you need to hone in and figure out. But if you can do that, he's got a really high ceiling to become what could be a steal of the draft. And the fact that he's with Andy Heck and Andy Reid gives him as great of a possibility of reaching that ceiling than another place that he could have gone to. Okay, so that's the coaching aspect of it. We've talked about that before. Did they find a steal in the 4th round, or did they take somebody's traits, put them in a position to succeed, taught them the game, taught them different fundamentals of how to cover and the way that they want it done? That player was coachable and smart, which they've talked about smart football players, and now you've got Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. Like, those are things that we'll never really be able to quantify. So those picks for Tyreek Hill, but they've all moved around. So, for instance, they used pick number 29 and pick number 121 to move up to get Trent McDuffie, but they also used their own 3rd rounder to get Trent McDuffie. So now that 3rd rounder has to be added into what they traded away with Tyreek Hill. They used the 4th rounder from this year along with their 2nd rounder, number 63, to move up and get Rashee Rice. So therefore, that 2nd round pick has to be included in what they traded away with Tyreek Hill to get a player back, because that 4th rounder was a part of it. You can't just say, we're going to give them 1/3 of Rashee Rice in the Tyreek Hill trade. And then pick number 178, they just traded for a 5th rounder. So here's the update, as organized as I could possibly put it. What the Chiefs have traded away so far in the Tyreek Hill trade after we've gone through 2 drafts. Tyreek Hill, a 2022 3rd round pick, number 94, a 2022 7th round pick, number 233, and a 2023 2nd round pick, number 63. What they have received in return and the draft picks they have used: Trent McDuffie, Sky Moore, Darian Kennard, Rashee Rice, Keandre Coburn, a 2024 5th round draft pick so far, and then you add in the cap space that they have without Tyreek Hill, which is kind of immeasurable because you don't know the different decisions that would be made if you're adding in $13 million against the cap this year for Tyreek Hill. If you're just structuring it the exact same way the Dolphins, which is the only thing we can know, is if they matched the Dolphins' offer and said, you know what, you're going to stay here. Roughly $13 million against the cap for Tyreek Hill this year. The Chiefs, when they sign their draft class, will have about $1 million to work with. I don't know how they're going to structure everything with Jerick McKinnon because they're signing him. So they're sitting at about $4 million right now, and only 2 draft picks will count against their top 51 in this draft. It'll be FAU and Rashee Rice, because everybody else will then be the same price that is already listed on their top 51 of like the last 7 or 8 players. So that's not going to impact the cap at all. Only the top 2 players, and then add in like $30,000, but that's negligible. So FAU and Rashee Rice are then added to the cap of what they have right now, which is roughly $4 million under the cap. Add those guys in, you're looking at 1 and change under the cap right now. McKinnon, who knows? Now throw in $13 million for Tyreek Hill. Now, you take Trent McDuffie's. This is where it gets kind of convoluted.
Right.
Because you take a number of the draft picks away because you wouldn't have those on your team for Tyreek Hill. But next year, he's going to be $30 million against the cap for the Dolphins. It skyrockets. And I would guess that the Chiefs would have structured the deal somewhat the same, right? That they would have taken less earlier, kicked the can down the road and said, we can adjust with Patrick Mahomes and do some of those things. I promise you this, Patrick Mahomes' cap hit 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road already would be much higher than it is right now because they would have had to have flexibility with Patrick Mahomes. And with $30 million hitting the cap next year for Tyreek Hill, I don't know that you can keep Chris Jones. It would be incredibly difficult to do. It may be the point to where we're discussing what they got in a Chris Jones trade in this draft this year. Yeah. Those are things we can't really quantify, but if we're just simply looking at what the players and the draft picks were, without throwing in how much you can really add in to the equation of the cap space, Tyreek Hill, a second, a third, and a seventh for Tyreek Hill. For Trent McDuffie, Sky Moore, Darian Kennard, Rashee Rice, Keandre Coburn, and a fifth-round pick next year. I think a lot of it, of whether we talk about did they win the trade, did they lose the trade, all of that stuff. Part of it is winning a Super Bowl because they were able to win the Super Bowl while getting deeper, younger, and extending that window a little bit more. And flexibility of even keeping Chris Jones around. Flexibility of going signing different players.
Real quick on the salary cap number, this does not project beyond this year.
Yeah.
But for last year and this year, Tyreek Hill and Marquez Valdez-Scantling had very similar cap numbers. So that's relatively analogous. Just if you want to stick a receiver on those numbers,
great point.
Changes a lot next year when the cap explodes.
It's a great point because MVS would not be on the team if they had Tyreek Hill. That was like a 1-for-1 on that day.
And it's like 5 to 6.5 and 11 to 13 million. So
great point.
A little bit of fat, but pretty close.
Great point. So that's where it gets kind of convoluted. Next year is when you'll really see.
It's like Chris Jones money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next year is when you'll feel. So you might even make the case that it's Tyreek Hill, a second, a third, and a seventh for those draft picks and Chris Jones. I mean, to a degree, right?
I'm willing to listen to this line of logic. Yes, absolutely.
We can never actually quantify it that way because maybe the Chiefs would have found a way to fit Chris Jones under the cap as well.
Right.
But then you're making cuts in so many other places that then you'll have to add into what they would have got back or lost in the Tyreek Hill trade.
Yep.
It is very difficult. But if you're just looking and saying Tyreek Hill, a second, a third, and a seventh for McDuffie, Sky Moore, Darian Kennard, Rashee Rice, Keandre Coburn, and a fifth-rounder next year. I think a couple of players make or break this trade for the Chiefs. And it's the position that Tyreek played. It's Sky and Rashee for me. I don't know that they'll ever get anything out of Darian Kennard except for some depth on the offensive line, and that's valuable. He's clearly in the mix at right tackle. Brett Veach talked about him specifically. Little surprised he didn't mention Prince Tega-Winogo when he was talking about those at right tackle. He said Wanye, Niang, Kennard will be in the mix, but Kennard may be a guy that slides down inside. That's kind of what we're looking at right tackle. Maybe they're saying, Prince, you're at left tackle. You're the backup for Jawan Taylor. Stay there. You're not going to be a swing tackle. That might be Niang or Wanye or whatever. You're at left tackle. We got 3 guys to figure out right tackle. And if Kennard isn't there, he can slide down and be a backup at guard with Allegretti, et cetera, et cetera. But Sky Moore and Rashee Rice, to me, are the ones that can make or break. Because if you're able to get Sky Moore and Rashee Rice, if Sky takes a step forward and Rice becomes this guy that can go and win the jump balls and is a reliable receiver and has playmaking ability. You also throw in the fact they went and got Kadarius Toney because they did not have Tyreek Hill. So if you have Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, and Kadarius Toney that are a deeper group that offer different things, then I think we would look at it and go, the Chiefs absolutely won the trade because they got McDuffie, they got Coburn out of it, they got Darian Kennard, they got whatever they use on a fifth-rounder next year, which they will absolutely trade. There is zero chance they will select the Dallas Cowboys' fifth-round pick next year in 2024. Brett Veach just can't let the trade die. And then whatever cap space that they added in. If Sky Moore and Rashee Rice become better than average, good receivers, that you've got 3 more years of Sky and 4 years of Rashee Rice, then I would have no problem saying the Chiefs absolutely won that trade with Tyreek Hill. And they've got a Lombardi trophy to show for it, too, which is a big one. Maybe they would have had a Lombardi trophy even if Tyreek Hill was playing. We don't know that. Only thing we do know is that they have one without Tyreek Hill. I think those two players are huge swing factors in winning or losing, or it's a good trade, it's a bad trade, all of that.
If you didn't know the Chiefs won the Super Bowl this year, which is a huge cloud over this conversation, right? Not even a cloud, it's a beaming light, I guess, over this conversation. In this format of going Tyreek Hill, 2nd, 3rd, 7th, for guys who, if they were on other teams, we would just look at completely differently, right? Your Darian Kennard, project O-lineman. Keandre Coburn seemed like value in this draft class. Late day 3 defensive lineman, and then small school receiving gambles on Sky Moore and Rashee Rice, and Trent McDuffie looks like he could be a blue chip player. But if he's not Jalen Ramsey, he's probably not going to have the individual impact of a Tyreek Hill. And the funny thing about this is that if I'm in the Chiefs' shoes, I feel no regrets about making this trade, but I'm also looking at it in this format, and I feel like it would be crazy to say, no, the Chiefs definitely got value across the board here. And maybe it's even the other picks that did get added in for the trade-ups and for the maneuvering, because the actual trading of Tyreek Hill, I think, stands up to this test. But when you see all of these assets listed out before they become real players and real names for whichever teams ended up with the picks, and obviously it's not all Miami because of the trade-ups, when you start to boil it down, I start to like it less, which is a really weird place to be in. This tweet does not look like the Chiefs won a trade, but I did see them win a Super Bowl, and I do like their roster better now than I think I would if it was Tyreek Hill minus all of these players. It's really interesting and probably the sign of a pretty good trade.
And there's no
for both sides, I mean.
And it can get deeper and deeper, and we'll take a timeout. It's not as easy as A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks, Stephon Diggs for what ended up being Justin Jefferson. Like, those are simple, easy ways to discuss and break it down because, as you said, the Tyreek Hill money is now MVS. So you can even throw in McDuffie, Sky Moore, Kennard, Rashee Rice, Coburn, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a 5th-rounder, and cap space. Like, you can throw that in there as well. Right. So if you add MVS to the mix and say, okay, now you've got these players plus Marquez Valdez-Scantling, okay, it starts to look a little bit better. And when you put the ring on the finger on Thursday night to start the season and raise the flag, it looks even better. But if you just look at it on paper like that, it doesn't feel like the Chiefs won that trade. But with the information we have, I'd make it 10 out of 10.
Absolutely, right.
10 out of 10 with the information in hand.
I think the Dolphins are happy with where they're at also.
Agreed. I think the Dolphins are good with that trade as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
You know, those are the Chiefs transactions. Transactions can happen with somebody, performing a service and you giving money for that. You won't regret the money that you pay for what you're getting from Bickmer Electric. More than 20 years in the industry, Bickmer Electric, your locally owned and operated one-stop electrical contractor. Small jobs to big jobs, the Bickmer team knows how to take care of your commercial and residential electrical needs. My wife and I had so many different projects around the house when we moved in that we wanted to get done. So being able to just itemize all of those things to figure out, do we want to do it in one fell swoop? Do we want to piece it out, a couple of months here, a couple of months there? Let's pay for this, let's pay for that. Plus, even when you look at job number one, here's 4 or 5 different options and price points for how and what they could use and how they would be able to perform this particular task. It's great having all those choices in front of us. You want to hire a professional, make sure the job is done the right way the first time. Bickmer does all jobs according to city code. They don't cut corners. Call now, 913-313-6751. That's 913-313-6751. BickmerElectric.com. It's Bickmer Electric.
Hey guys, our friends over at Regain are offering a big discount on their signatures.
All right, some Royals news. We will talk with Les Norman coming up at noon, breaking the norm. Adam Teicher, we'll talk with him in the next hour. Royals news that Nicky Lopez is going to have an emergency appendectomy. I'm going to assume today. He will have the emergency appendectomy, and the Royals are calling up Michael Garcia.
I don't think there are a lot of planned appendectomies.
Remember Joe Burrow in training camp when it was he's elected to have surgery for an appendicitis, and we were like,
yeah, you're right.
So is there an elective? Can you choose to have that? And then we had a number of different doctors who, much smarter than we are, that said really most surgeries are elective. You know, even when it's like sort of a, you know, if your appendix has not burst,
yeah,
and you're having sort of an if you're going through that spell or whatever you want to call it, that choosing to have the surgery would make it an elective surgery, even though it's kind of, you got to do it. When it's burst, it's an emergency one, and you got to get in there and do it. That's not elective or something. I don't remember all the different details. I'm not a doctor, okay? I just played one that day for about 10 minutes while reading the texts.
And it looks like I'm just kind of scrolling through. I don't have official word on this from the Royals or anything, so grain of salt. But if it was an emergency appendectomy, it seems like Nicky Lopez may have already had that surgery and is now going to the IL. But certainly, if there's anything specific on that, I'll let you know.
Okay, there we go. So Michael Garcia has been called up from the minors. Annie Rogers also says, according to a source, there may be other moves coming later today. Don't know what those moves are.
You made the point during the break that anything involving Hunter Dozier, it would be weird to do that while Nicky Lopez specifically is on the IL because he gives you a whole lot of infield flexibility. Don't know what else that might even be.
Yeah, no idea what it might be for the Royals. But it might be something along the lines of MJ Melendez being sent down to get it figured out, to get it straightened out. Keeping Nick Pratto up to play outfield. Because if Drew Waters is making his rehab assignments right now and eventually being brought back up, then I'm guessing that'll be for Jackie Bradley Jr. But if they send down MJ Melendez to get that figured out, because the one thing that he could hang his hat on early in the season while he wasn't hitting the ball and striking out a lot, he was walking a pretty decent amount. Since the Braves series, he has 2 walks in all of his plate appearances. So now he's not even doing that. He's not offering much in value at the plate, unfortunately. So maybe time to go and get that figured out. That could be a corresponding move. We'll see what happens later on today.
WHB Kansas City.
Hey, Kansas City, Stephen St. John here. Our friends at Polymagic are the local experts for floor coatings. Trust me, the crew of Polymagic applied a new garage floor at my house, and it's my new go-to spot to catch the games and for my son's band practice. Their process is 10 times more durable than epoxy, and they can even match the colors of your favorite college or sports team. Free estimates are always available. Call Tom and Vince at Polymagic for a free estimate and ask about the SSJ special. Up to $500 off your project. 816-765-4800 or visit polymagic.net.
We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and we're for the people of Missouri. We're for kayakers, car dealers, grocery baggers, and mail carriers. We're for teachers, preachers, students, and singers. Armed service members, you bet we're for you. We're for people who shake your hand and say hello, not because they know you, but because they don't. We're for brewmasters, stockbrokers, beauty queens, and truck drivers. And don't worry, we're still for farmers too. Whatever you do, if you're a Missourian, we're for you.
I am Ethan Stark, your Missouri Farm Bureau insurance agent, and if you're in Clay County, I've got you covered.
Get to Zarda Barbecue today and try my favorite sandwich, the Turkey Crunch. And for a limited time, it's just $7.99. The Turkey Crunch starts with deep-fried, thin-sliced turkey breast, then it's topped with 2 strips of bacon, melted provolone, and our house-made chipotle mayo on a toasted Roma bun. Hungry? Come try the Turkey Crunch today for only $7.99 at Zarda Barbecue in Blue Springs and Lenexa. Zarda Barbecue, come get some.
Erectile dysfunction affects nearly 50% of men over age 50. But even with so many men affected, finding a trusted provider to treat the condition isn't so simple. This is Jeff, the CEO of Promenic Restorative Men's Health, and I'm excited to announce the opening of Heartland Men's Health right here in Kansas City. As a Promenic affiliate, Heartland Men's Health can offer men with ED the latest treatment protocols which are shown in medical studies to be effective in nearly 90% of men. And unlike groups that only offer wave therapy or online pharmacies that just sell pills, we offer a variety of treatments to help you get the results that you want. You should also know that Heartland Men's Health is a true medical practice, which means our providers have access to a complete range of treatment options and even treatment combinations to get you back on track. You may even find that you're performing like you haven't in years. So call Heartland Men's Health today. Your initial visit is only $99 and includes a medical consult, blood work, and if medically advised, a test dose. And if that test dose doesn't work in the office, your visit is free. Call 844-447-6600 or go to heartlandmenshealth.com.
Salty Iguana's been hosting Casey's biggest Cinco de Mayo celebration for over 30 years, and this year the party runs for 3 days, May 5th through May 7th. Great specials like $5 gold margaritas, $10 buckets of 4 beers, $8 perfect Patron margaritas, Patron shots for $7, and house tequila shots just $5. These specials are all good at all Salty Iguana locations, Prairie Village, Lawrence, Olathe, and Independence. And remember, the program with me, Soren Petro, will be broadcasting live from the Salty Iguana in Independence on May 5th. So celebrate Cinco de Mayo with the program at Salty Iguana.
Spring rainstorms create so many problems for your roof. From inspections, repairs to complete replacement, gutters too, Buck Roofing has you covered. Go to ourbuckroofing.com and sleep well knowing Buck Roofing fixed the roof over your head.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. 913-912-4810 is the text line. We'll talk with Adam Teicher here in just a second. Get his thoughts on the Chiefs draft. Who they took, why they took them, where they took them, what they will be. Adam, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. Let's start off with this. I was looking at 2024 mock drafts. What do you think the Chiefs should do in 2024? Let's get into it. Let's really break this down.
I was hoping we could preview that today. Thank you so much. You've made my day.
No, let's talk some players that are real life, that are not fictionalized or just out there and guessing and seeing what they will do. What's your takeaway and maybe recap of what the Chiefs were able to accomplish in the 3 days and ultimately 7 picks that they took in the draft?
Yeah, well, I liked the early round picks, particularly the first 2 for the Chiefs. I think both, Anuike, Uzoma, and Rice will be good players for the Chiefs. But here's the thing, we all went into the draft saying that, edge rusher and wide receiver and offensive tackle. And I just feel like you hit all your needs like that, like the Chiefs did in the first 3 rounds. That generally doesn't add up to success. Not to say it won't this time, but I don't know. I have a hard time believing that always that the board lines up with needs like that seems to have done here for the Chiefs. So, we'll see. I do like, the first 2 picks, though, for the Chiefs. I think those guys will be good players. But, Morris might be in the 3rd round as well. But I just don't know that they really it very seldom works out the way you hope when you're drafting for need like the Chiefs did.
How much do you think there is that combination of our draft board, the best available, and the need? Because I do wonder how much teams create their draft board based around some long-term or even short-term needs. So therefore, they would just be following their board, which also might be skewed in this weight scale towards players and positions they need anyway.
Yeah, and I'm okay with with need being a tiebreaker,
Yeah.
we got to have a guy either this year or for the over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and it's either a corner where we drafted 3 guys last year and we have L'Jarius Sneed, or we can go get Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Okay, there's your tiebreaker right there. I'm good with that. Or if you've got a group of guys, and you say, you know what, we really need an edge guy to play. I'm okay with that, but it doesn't always fall that way. It's just that's not how the draft works. So sometimes I feel like teams are guilty of elevating guys. They make them in their minds great players because they have a need for a great player at that spot, and So I don't feel like those drafts generally are the good ones, but I do. Having said that, I do like the first 2 picks for the Chiefs.
Let's talk about that. Felix Anudike-Uzomah is a Chief now, a Kansas City resident. The story is amazing with growing up here, going to Chiefs games, being at the Matt Castle game, being at a game in which they beat the Packers, and we talked about that yesterday or even Friday. They beat the Packers, and Romeo Crennel got the job the next year because they beat the Packers. And then, of course, that brought Andy Reid the next year. And as they say, the rest is history. So FAU had a big part being there, part of the fans that created the dominoes that eventually got Andy Reid to the Chiefs. Because the Chiefs kept Romeo Crennel for 1 more year or went out and hired another coach that wasn't just in-house, do they immediately fire that coach and go get Andy Reid? Or is Andy Reid an Arizona Cardinal head coach? It's a lot of things that the dominoes and everything like that. But let's talk about that specific pick, defensive end, Felix Anudike-Uzomah. You said you liked it. What do you like about that pick and his impact with the Chiefs this year and over the next 4, maybe 5?
Yeah, and if FAU didn't go to the game that day, did the Chiefs win?
That's exactly right.
All that happened. I mean, there you go. There's your history there.
Yep.
But I think this is a guy who, to me, has got a Tom Bahali type career written all over him. I think that's the kind of career you can expect out of him. Maybe not leading the league in sacks or being a Pro Bowl, but being a sound down-to-down kind of guy, and being an effort guy, and I think this he'll be a nice complement to George Karlaftis. I think those guys will play well off each other. So I think this is, and we know there's a need. The Chiefs, they had Karlaftis, they have Mike Dana, they have. Who am I forgetting over there? They had somebody else.
Omenihu.
But Omenihu, of course. Charles Omenihu. So, now they've got a pretty solid group over there, and I think there's some pretty good possibilities. And the one thing that Brett Veach said, this was at his pre-draft presser. I'd ask him how he thought all the new free agents, would fit in. He always gives you a nugget there. And what he said about Omenihu was, we like him as a 3-down player, but we think that he's really going to help us on passing downs. He's going to shift inside and give us a nice inside presence with Chris Jones. So that tells you they're looking for somebody to bookend with Karlaftis as a pass rusher, and so there you go. I think FAU can do that right off the bat and be that kind of guy for the Chiefs. Doesn't necessarily have to play a lot on running downs, although I'm sure he'll be part of the rotation. But that's where I expect his immediate contribution to be is on passing downs.
And we know this about Steve Spagnuolo in the defensive line is that he likes a lot of players to rotate in there, especially at that defensive end position. So, as you mentioned, you've got Dana, you've got Karlaftis, you've got Omenihu, you've got Felix Anudike-Uzomah. Those are 4 guys to play 2 positions, and on passing downs you can mix and match some different things. But building that depth, because a year ago at this time there were a lot of questions about what this team would look like on that defensive line, that you had Karlaftis and Frank Clark starting. There was no Ingram at that time. There was no Carlos Dunlap on this team. The expectation was that Ingram would be on the team, but that wasn't the case, and then they got Carlos Dunlap. But at the time last year was like, okay, Kendo is one of the main backups now. And his name isn't even mentioned except for B.J. Thompson is going to take the spot of what Kendo maybe was. That's the only time we mentioned his name, but it feels like that depth, even on the entire defensive line, Adam, because if you throw in, Turk Wharton recovering from an injury and Chris Jones You got a couple of guys to play that position, and then Noddy and Coburn. You've got a pretty good two deep across the board at all four of those spots.
Yeah, and that's what you'd certainly like to have this time of year, and going into a season is that kind of depth for the Chiefs. They can't keep too many more than that. They will. I think Thompson will definitely make the team at least.
Mm-hmm.
And, who knows, somebody gets hurt or whatever, that can change things. But I can see a lot of work right now for all 8 of those guys, and particularly the four guys on the edge. I think those guys, there's going to be a lot of snaps available for all those guys. And, FAU's going to need to play well for the Chiefs right away, no doubt about it.
Do you think he'll be a 3-down lineman, FAU, or grow into a 3-down lineman? Or is he a guy that the Chiefs draft him because they need somebody to get after the quarterback? He can rush around the end with his athleticism. Karlaftis can maybe collapse the pocket a little bit more with his strength. And then Chris Jones up the middle, along with maybe Omenihu on passing downs, up the middle to really create the 3 different levels of that pocket to put pressure on the quarterback. Is he a guy that's going to be, just relied upon for that? Or do you think he will grow into maybe being a 3-down lineman?
Oh, yeah, I think that definitely he'll at some point be asked to play all 3 downs, and it may be earlier than I think. But right now I see that being Karlaftis and Omenihu, and then FAU and Mike Dana kind of rotating into those spots. But, hey, I think if he takes to that role earlier, he'll get more work early in his career in that role than I expect. I don't think the Chiefs are going to limit him in any respect that way. But I feel like it's more realistic to think his major contribution, at least early in his rookie year, say the first half of his rookie year, will come on passing downs.
And also, it's I guess it's also a look at the difference in the depth of this roster versus a year ago, especially at that particular position, because when Karlaftis was drafted, there was an expectation at him that, okay, he's starting right away. I mean, that's your starting defensive end, and he needs to be good because the Chiefs have to be able to pressure the quarterback, and they have Frank Clark that they brought back and, restructured that contract. And that's kind of it. Maybe Mike Dana, we mentioned Kendo, but maybe they'll get Melvin Ingram, but those are rotational pieces. Karlaftis is going to have to be a guy that, you would hope could lead this team in reps at the defensive end spot, which he ended up doing.
Nope.
Felix Anudike-Uzomah, that's not the view this year. I mean, it's the depth that they've built, and also the emergence of Michael Dana being somebody that's, of value. But, Felix is not looked at and say, boy, this guy has to start right now. He better start, or there's some issues on the defensive line. And if you ain't getting after the quarterback, you've got a young secondary that you're going to be left exposed. Last year at this time, there were some real questions about defensively at the cornerback spot and the defensive line spot, as opposed to this year when there's much more comfort to it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, hey, there's not necessarily the expectations or immediate expectations on FAU that there were on Karlaftis last year. I don't think there's no question. I mean, I thought Karlaftis, you looked at the rookie group, and this includes Trent McDuffie. He was more important going into training camp than any of those guys because of how thin they were at those spots. But now I don't feel that way, and he's kind of established himself as a 3-down player, and the Chiefs have Omenihu and Mike Dana, so they don't have to necessarily get FAU involved to any great extent on running downs early in his career, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't if he earns those snaps. So I'm not limiting him in any respect in that regard. I'm just saying I don't think he has to be that kind of guy. I mean, if you're asking me to look at the Chiefs' group of rookies, the draft picks, okay, which one of these guys has the most expectations on him early in his career? I'm going to say it's Rashee Rice, just because I think the Chiefs need his talents right away more than they need FAU's right now. That could change over time, but right now I think that's how I feel about it.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN, let's talk about that pick. The Chiefs trade up from number 63 to 55 to go and get Rashee Rice. We heard from Brett Veach that, there was an attempt to trade up in the pocket from, 18 to 22, 23. That didn't work out. Another pocket of like 25 to 28 around there. That didn't work out. that was the end of their inability to trade up, essentially, because second, third, and fourth rounders they traded up for. So Brett Veach didn't get his way in the first round, but damn it, he was going to make up for it and continuing to trade up. And we also didn't think they would take 10 picks. But Rashee Rice is the guy. They move up. He ends up being the 7th wide receiver off the board, the 4 in the first round, Mingo, and then Reed, your boy from Michigan State. So what did you think of the Rashee Rice pick? And I agree with you that there's more of an expectation of him coming in and a little bit more important in his position and his play than maybe even FAU's. So what do you think of trading up to get him, first of all, and then what he can do in his skill set?
Yeah, no, I'm always about, if you like a guy and you feel convicted that he can help you win games in the short term and the long term, by all means, go ahead and do that. So I have no problem with them going up to get him. They just need to be right now when they in their evaluation of him. But, Jason, you and I talked about last week, you remember, before the draft, what the Chiefs needed at wide receiver, what type of player. Mm-hmm. And this was kind of that kind of player, I think. He kind of gives them a guy that maybe they don't have. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but that's okay because, certainly Tony and MVS can run really well, and some of the other guys they've got can run. But he runs well after the catch. That's one of the things that the Chiefs really talked about after picking him was that, that they felt like he can be a weapon with the ball in his hands. So I expect to see them use him in some of the ways that they used McCole Hardman last year. Try to get him the ball on screens and jet sweeps and stuff like that, and let him do his thing that way. So hey, I do like the pick. I think he's kind of unlike anybody the Chiefs have. Fills in a little bit of hole in their receiving group, and let's face it, the Chiefs don't have any proven number one wide receivers. Tony might turn out to be that guy. I think the Chiefs really expect that he will. And they've got some veteran guys like MVS, but we know what he is, I think, now. I mean, he's not going to be a high volume, 6-8 catches a week kind of guy. He's just not going to be that at this point in his career. So maybe Rice does give them, they're going to need help from him, I think, to round out this receiving group. And just from listening to them talk about him, just the things I hear, they feel like he's ready to do that.
Yeah, the interesting part about body type or play style versus actual production with Rashee Rice as it relates to Juju Smith-Schuster. So they lose Juju, obviously a bigger-bodied receiver, 6'1", 215. Rashee Rice, 6 foot, 6'1", about 205, maybe 210, depending on what his playing weight will end up being. But a guy who's strong at the point of the catch, can go up and make some really acrobatic plays. There's the production of Juju with the 78 receptions, almost 1,000 yards, that is going to have to be replaced eventually. I'm not saying that's Rashee Rice, but I do wonder, Adam, the build of the player, the maybe style of what they got from Juju of being a bigger player that can, understand some zones and some spacing and then can go up and make some catches because he can, essentially box out the defender and make those plays. And he became somebody that Mahomes really liked, last year and had some big plays in the Super Bowl, outside of the holding call. I mean, he was a guy that was targeted a lot and receptions that were there for Juju Smith-Schuster. It may not be the production, Adam, but I wonder if there's, the Chiefs saw what they had last year with their receiving group, sans Tyreek Hill, and liked what they were getting from the different collection of skill sets, and they wanted to then replenish the cupboard with what they lost in Juju and put back in there with Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I don't think he's, a carbon copy. I don't think Rice is a carbon copy of Juju, but I think he can do some of the same things. And that's what the Chiefs seem to be thinking here. They talked, you remember, more than once. Andy Reid talked about one of the things he liked about Juju Smith-Schuster was that he felt like he was a nice compliment to Travis Kelce. Those two played off each other well, and their skills allowed the Chiefs to do things with both of those guys and with other guys because of the way they played off each other. And I think that's the role that Rice is going to fill. I mean, I don't expect him to be a starter necessarily or an every-down guy, but I do think he's going to play more than, say, Sky Moore played last year. And I think he's going to have a bigger role as a rookie. I really do. I think that's going to be an important thing for the Chiefs.
Is there an odd man out you're looking at right now? The Chiefs are going to, play 5 receivers. They've got 6 guys right now in MVS, and, they just drafted Rashee Rice. So Rice, MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, and Richie James. It's 6 guys. Typically they'll keep 5 or activate 5, keep 6, activate 5. Is there an odd man out, you think, right now? And people love Justin Ross, certainly a player that, could be a part of the team. They signed Justin Watson. It's more of a guaranteed deal. It'll cost them more to cut him than to keep him. They signed Richie James. I like that signing. I think he can take some pressure off of Kadarius Toney in returning punts. But right now they actually have a pretty crowded wide receiver room.
Yeah, no, they do. I like the depth. So I'm just wondering about the top end.
For sure.
The top end of that depth chart, and do they have what they need in that regard? But if you're asking me who's the odd man out, that'll all play out, of course, during camp and all that. But if I had to pick a guy now, I'm just wondering about Richie James. I don't know how he's going to fit in here. He might fit in well, but we don't know that, and. He's got to build up all that with Mahomes over these coming weeks and months. So, it easily could happen. I'm not saying it's a prohibitive thing, but I'm wondering a little bit about him and how he's going to fit here. And, it's ironic. He's got the best season, right, in terms of number of catches.
Yeah.
For an NFL season, he's got the best one of anybody on the Chiefs roster right now with his 57 catches with the Giants last year. But I just don't know that that he's going to be the guy who gets playing time. It could end up that he does and plays a big role. But right now, that's the guy I would wonder about a little bit. Certainly, I think these other guys, mainly, of course, Toney, Rice, and MVS are going to get a lot of time. And I think Sky Moore will fill that 4th role.
We talked last week, Adam, about, if the Chiefs were to trade up and get one of these wide receivers, the Addison, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, maybe even Jackson Smith and Jigba, if they wanted to make a big play to move up even further to get a guy like that. And it turns out they wouldn't have had to move up to like the mid-teens, just to 20, which is what Brett Veach kind of talked about. There was a pocket from 18 to 23. And that certainly seems like the wide receivers that he was talking about to get up there and get somebody. And one of the things we talked about last week was if they trade up to get somebody like that, is it going against from what they said all of last year of that, they like the balance. They like the balance of, 1 through 5, 1 through 6, that it doesn't necessarily take, that superstar, that high-level receiver to have. It'd be nice to have them with the balance. Or do you collect draft picks, not trade a 2nd and a 3rd rounder to move up and get that guy, and then take somebody in the 2nd round that adds to the balance? So what do you make of the conversation and the answer from Brett Veach that, there was a pocket from 18 to 23 they were trying to trade up, and I think it's safe to assume that that's a wide receiver, one of those guys they were going after, and they end up taking Rashee Rice in the 2nd round. So there was at least an attempt to go and get a Zay Flowers, a Jordan Addison, a Quentin Johnston, and maybe even a Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, the Chiefs liked Rice enough to where it was not going to be worth it to them to pay the price, whatever it was going to take to move up from 31 to 20 or 22 or in that range. They didn't like the other receivers more than Rice enough to make that move. So I don't think they did make some calls, as we know, and I'm sure they weighed it out. Hey, will this be worth it? To do this, but that's just good drafting. You always have to know what your options are and all that. But I don't think they were ever really close to pulling off a deal. I don't think they liked any of those guys enough, more than Rice, to go ahead and do that. So I think they would have, had some of those guys been there, let's just say where the Chiefs picked in the 2nd round, then they would have gone ahead and done that. But I feel like they're comfortable with Rice in terms of he can do for them a lot, if not all, of the things that some of those other receivers that went in the 1st round could do.
Adam Teicher from ESPN is our guest. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue talking with Adam, get his thoughts on some of the other draft picks. Wanya Morris in the 3rd round. They traded up for him. Shamari Connor in the 4th round. B.J. Thompson, Nick Jones, Keandre Coburn, the different players that they drafted looking at some of the positional groups as it stands now that free agency and the draft is essentially over. And then Jerick McKinnon looks like he'll be returning to the Chiefs as well. So we'll talk about those things with Adam Teicher coming up on the other side of the break. More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com. In the 810...
getting customer service at all.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, and Drake. We continue rolling along, talking with Adam Teicher. Adam, let's talk about the third-round draft pick. It is tackle out of Oklahoma, and that is Wanya Morris, 6'5", 307. And they move up to draft the tackle in the third round, so they take care of defensive end, wide receiver, and then offensive tackle. What'd you make of the pick of Wanya Morris?
Yeah, it felt, again, like the first two picks, like a need pick, but
yeah,
it's okay if he works out and he turns into a good player. Then that's fine. I don't mind them spending a third-round pick and a starting offensive tackle. That's a good spot to get one. So, we'll see. Now they got a little insurance. They really didn't have that for Lucas Niang. I still expect Niang to be the starter when the season begins. But, he's had some injury issues and hadn't been consistent even when he's played. So the Chiefs now have a little bit of insurance. When Morris is, when Morris gets there. So I do like the pick. I'm wondering, again, just did value need outrank value here for the Chiefs? So I guess we'll find that out.
Yeah, unlike the defensive line, I actually think the confidence I have right now and the feeling of security or comfort, I should say, in the offensive line is different than the defensive line. We just talked about how this time a year ago there were a lot of questions about the defensive line and what George Karlaftis needed to be. With the offensive line, this time a year ago, Orlando Brown was returning as the left tackle. Andrew Wiley was returning as the right tackle. You had the seasons from Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, which was, a revelation. And then Joe Thuney, one of the best left guards in all of football. So you had a comfort level and a confidence in the offensive line. Then they threw in Darian Kennard, which at this time last year, people were saying, maybe he can compete at right tackle with Andrew Wiley or Niang if he's healthy, and we'll see how long it takes Niang to come back from that patella injury. This year, they've got a guy who's never played left tackle, moving to left tackle, and they've got a guy who's been injury-prone in Lucas Niang, that is the starting right tackle, with then a third-round pick who's also had his injury issues in college, in Wanya Morris, competing at the right tackle spot, or even Kennard, who we talked about last year, that was barely ever even active at that right tackle spot. It feels good guard to guard, but the tackle issue this year is a lot more concerning than it was a year ago, and that is even after Orlando Brown, who many people were soured on, has left to become a Bengal. It's a different feel on the offensive line, which isn't great because I'd rather feel more comfortable at the offensive line than defensive line.
Yeah, I get you. And there's unknowns on both those tackle spots.
Yes.
You don't know how Juwan Taylor's going to fit in here, and you don't know how he's going to play on the left side. So there's some unknowns there. On the right side, Niang has not been able to hold that position down. Not to say he couldn't at this point in his career. I think he's probably better equipped to do it now than he was at the time. But we'll see. And is Morris, if they have to call on him, is he ready? I think this draft pick of Morris kind of tells you everything you need to know about what the Chiefs think about Darian Kennard. If the Chiefs thought that he was a viable option there, then you can let him compete with Lucas Niang, and you really don't need Morris. But, hey, I've seen guys – he just had such a rocky rookie season, Kennard did, that you wonder if he's ever going to make it. And, I've seen guys over the years overcome this kind of start to their careers and become pretty good players. So I'm not saying it can't happen, but I think the way you have to look at it and the way the Chiefs are evidently, judging by their actions, looking at it with Kennard is now it's going to be found money. If they ever get anything out of him as a player, it's going to be unexpected, and they're going to it's not going to happen because they're planning on it.
Especially if you believe them that they were going to take Sky Moore at pick number 50 and ended up taking him at pick 54. If you believe that, and that was going to be the pick anyway, then they picked up 158, which they drafted Kennard with. So then you could say, all right, then you're right. It's found money at that point because they would have had Sky Moore and no Kennard. Now they've got Sky Moore and Darian Kennard. And there's also, even mentioning Kennard and, not having the season people were hoping and being drafted in the 5th round, and it was like, wow, he shouldn't be there. Well, we kind of see that there was a reason why he was there, viewed at the way that other teams, looked at him as his prospective production in year number 1. But I bring that up with Wanya Morris. I think there's a confidence that you and I have talked about with a healthy organization, with a healthy coaching staff, that you feel confident that those guys can put players in the right position to succeed, and they can coach them up technique-wise, things like that. We've discussed that with the secondary in Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Snead, and McDuffie, and things like that. I mentioned Wanya Morris because there are things that people talk about that are unteachable. His wingspan, his length, 6'5", 310, and his athleticism that goes along with those measurables. All right, you're not going to be able to teach that with an offensive lineman. But the issues that happen with him are some of the technique things where he can get off balance. His punch is at the wrong time. He hops back when he's worried about bull rushers, which then constricts the pocket a little bit. There are some times when he's engaging and his feet stop. So those are things that I would guess, Adam, are teachable and correctable with him, and then you can maximize and tap into the length, the wingspan, the size, the athleticism, his ability to get out and pull, one of the best tackles to get out and pull and find the next level and find his fits. That's one of his strengths. So there's a confidence, I guess, for me that Wanya Morris with Andy Heck and Andy Reid has a more likely chance of reaching his potential than with another team. But that's also coming off a year ago when they drafted Darian Kennard, and there was sort of the same feeling this time last year that Kennard with Andy Heck and Andy Reid would grow into that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So don't assume it's going to happen. Although the Chiefs have done a nice job over the years with guys like Andrew Wiley, guys who bounced around the league a little bit, and Austin Reiter, they've done a nice job of getting some really good play out of those guys. So, it has happened. But you're right, in the Kennard instance, it's not going to happen all the time, but you feel better about a guy with Morris's situation, like you mentioned. Good athlete, has a lot of the traits you want to see. He just needs technique work. He needs better habits. Well, you feel better that he can succeed for the Chiefs, when he's got all the tools and just needs the coaching, as opposed to the other way around where he came in as a finished product but just didn't have the tools to get any better. So yeah, absolutely. In that respect, you like the pick, and you have to feel like it's going to work out for the Chiefs, and he'll become a pretty good player for him.
What do you think about day 3? They have 4 picks in day 3. They take a safety, a defensive end, a defensive tackle, and a cornerback. So a couple of guys on the defensive line, a couple of guys in the secondary for this Chiefs team. So they attack defensive end, wide receiver, and offensive tackle in the first 2 days, and then go defensive line and secondary on day 3.
Yeah, and the Coburn thing, I think, was a direct in the 6th round. I think he was sort of a direct answer to losing Colin Saunders. I mean, I think he's probably going to have a similar type career to Colin Saunders. And Connor is an interesting guy in the 4th round. He looks a little bit at this stage of his career, just arriving to the Chiefs like maybe L'Jarius Sneed did when he first got to the Chiefs. Now their skill sets are a little different. I mean, I think Sneed's a faster guy and probably better suited to play corner. But Connor's got some cover skills, so you can do some different things. Maybe at some point he could be that third safety the Chiefs like to use, or even a starter at some point. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like that pick, even though the Chiefs loaded up at DB last season. I still like the Connor pick. I think they'll be able to get some good use over time with him. And the Coburn pick, I think, he can be that Colin Saunders type of guy over time, if not immediately. And, Thompson's just a pure gamble. He's got all the skills you want to see from an elite pass rusher. Now, can you coach him up? Can you can Joe Cullen and those guys teach him to play the game the way it needs to be played? So, late in the fifth round, I have no problem with a pick like that. So, and then Nick Jones in the seventh, I don't know where the need is there. He's got to be a pretty good player if he's going to beat out, one of the guys they drafted last year. So, but maybe they can develop him too. So, again, in the seventh round, you're just sort of throwing darts a little bit. So, I don't, positionally, you just wonder whether there's going to be roster room for him. But other than that, hey, if he can become a good player, then if you think he can become a good player, then by all means. So, kind of an interesting mix of guys on that second day. But, you can see some possibilities, at least for a couple of them.
The Connor one, I think can be twofold with this team. Can be immediate, and then maybe looking a couple of years down the road. They take Brian Cook last year, and we kind of felt like that was a direct connection to Juan Thornhill being on the last year of his contract. I think the Shamari Connor pick is bad news for Deion Bush because they can save almost $800,000 against the cap by releasing Deion Bush. It's only a $300,000 dead cap hit. And according to most people that have watched Connor, he's an exceptional special teamer. That right out of the gates, he's going to be one of the better special teamers on the team. And maybe that's the value that the Chiefs, we talked about special teams and younger players and Dave Tobe, that replacing so many different guys that, okay, this guy can be our fourth safety. And we know one thing right out of the gates, he's going to be one of our four-phase, special teams aces. But if you look after this year, the Chiefs can save $11 million on releasing Justin Reed. So if Connor is a stud special teamer and then grows into somebody that next year you're saying your three safeties are Cook, Connor, Edwards, and you let Reed go to save $8 million against the cap, then, it's also maybe a long-term play if Connor can grow into that. Because they did say they drafted him as a safety, even though he played cornerback most of his career, played safety 1 year. It's kind of the opposite of L'Jarius Sneed. Played cornerback, then safety for 1 year, and they're like, yeah, we got him as a cornerback. This is played cornerback, moved him to safety. No, we drafted him as a safety. I think there's a short-term and a long-term potential with Connor that I think the special teams got better right away with him. They can save $800,000 against the cap with Deion Bush. And then if he grows into a player, it might allow them to save $8 million next year. Or $11 million, sorry.
Yeah, you're right. And, Edwards is only on a 1-year deal, too. So
that's right. Edwards. Yeah, you're right. Back.
So, maybe they see, him stepping into that, even if they keep Justin Reed around in 2024. They see Connor, okay, you've been in our system for a year now. Now you're our third guy, and you're versatile, and we think you could do a lot of the things we want from that spot. So I can see that role for him as well. So, definitely the possibilities are there for him. No doubt about beyond special teams, no doubt about it.
You surprised that a couple things as running back, they're going to re-sign Jerick McKinnon. Brett Veach alluded to that yesterday. But are you surprised that a running back wasn't drafted by the Chiefs when they had 10 picks? They move a lot of, 3 of those to move up and end up drafting 7. But conversation we had last week, we both were sort of in agreement that running back would be a part of the overall draft haul.
Yeah, I am. I was stunned that they didn't draft a running back. I kept expecting it. On the second day, I kept expecting one, and never happened. So, I still think the Chiefs are kind of thin, even after signing Jerick McKinnon. I think they're kind of thin there. I mean, if there's an injury to Pacheco, where are you? If there's an injury to McKinnon, where are you? If there's an injury to Clyde, are you comfortable with your backups? So, I know the Chiefs like the undrafted guy that they signed, the kid out of Tulsa. Maybe he can become a pretty good player. But, I don't know. It feels a little thin there to me. It does. And, the Chiefs, year after year after year, they always have to dip into their depth at running back. They never can get through a season. Not since Kareem Hunt was a rookie have they gotten through a season where their starter, they didn't need a lot of depth, where their starter didn't get hurt. And, that's been a few years now since he was a rookie. They had to cut him the next year, you remember, and then Damian Williams had issues with injuries the next year. They drafted Clyde, 3 straight years of injuries for him. So they've really needed that depth. I got to believe that Brett Veach has something up his sleeve there. That we'll see somebody in. They brought in LaShawn McCoy the one year, and they brought in Le'Veon Bell. This feels, at least at this point, let's see what happens from here on, but this feels at this point like we're going to see a guy like that coming along, whether it's during camp or after camp or early in the regular season, whatever it might be. This has that feel right now.
We'll see what ends up happening. Adam Teicher from ESPN. Adam, appreciate the time as always. Great stuff. Love the coverage and the write-ups there at ESPN, and we'll be reading and checking out the coverage with rookie minicamp and everything like that coming up this week, and we'll talk next week, bud.
Good stuff, Jason. Talk to you then.
Absolutely. There's Adam Teicher from ESPN breaking down the Chiefs draft picks, the 7 selections for the Chiefs, and ultimately expected to sign Jerick McKinnon here pretty soon. No announcement yet on Clyde Edwards-Helaire's 5th-year option. That deadline is today. I'm guessing the no news is essentially news for Edwards-Helaire. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up this hour next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WH.
Thank you to Adam Teicher from ESPN. We will talk with Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, coming up at noon. Some Royals baseball. We haven't mentioned the Royals today, except for that Michael Garcia was called up. Nicky Lopez with an appendectomy, an emergency, an appendicitis that he is. So he's on the IL. They have called up Michael Garcia, and we mentioned that a little bit. And Les Norman will talk with him. And yesterday, the Royals put out that Drew Waters and Daniel Lynch are going to be making their rehab assignment. And then, like 2 hours later, they redact that, they erase that tweet, and they put out a tweet that just Daniel Lynch will be making a rehab assignment. So everybody sort of connected the dots that Drew Waters would not be making a rehab assignment. So there you go. We'll talk with Les Norman about some of those things and others at noon, and maybe find ways to not talk Royals.
What was the last good bit of Royals news we've heard? Like, what was the last, fun news in the Royals department?
Michael Garcia's called up, so maybe 2 hours ago.
Even that's and Nicky Lopez's internal organs are kind of messed up at the moment, so that still stinks.
Michael Garcia's called up, and Nicky Lopez is lighter. He's one appendix less than he was yesterday.
I don't know if this is a bit we could pull off yet. This might be the time because the draft just happened. And I really feel like Kansas City largely kind of just forgot about baseball for a week. I think if we went and did a man on the street in Kansas City and asked people to guess the Royals record, I don't know how many 7-22s we'd get.
That's a great point.
Because it looks really bad. They're 10 games back, and it is May 2nd.
Do you know what that's pacing for? 7-22 with the season-long pace?
No, but I bet it sucks.
You would bet correctly. 39-123.
Oh, come on.
Is that good? Is that bad?
That's wow.
Over under 39.5.
Sub 40 is gross, and that's not a bad week.
I'm mad I couldn't get the Royals line at 39.5 instead of 69.5 before the season.
Would have pounded the
I'm
over.
feeling pretty good about that under 69.5. I guess.
Yeah.
On ESPN.
I'm not.
on ESPN. They did a April grades for all 30 teams.
Oh yeah, what'd the Royals get?
Not last, because Can
I guess who would be last?
Sure.
White Sox.
Oakland.
The Rockies got an F. The Royals got an F. The White Sox got an F minus. The A's got an F minus.
No, White Sox should be last.
They didn't announce that they're leaving Chicago, so.
No, the reason the White Sox should be last is that the A's, we know they are tanking.
Yeah.
We know they're trying to suck. Their payroll is $56.8 million.
And they're handing it all out in poker chips.
The Royals' payroll is 92. The Sox payroll is 181. It's the highest payroll in the American League Central. That's why the White Sox should be last.
I hear you. I didn't make these rankings. It's really bad. It's all really bad.
Although the Rockies are $172 million payroll. Woo! So they ain't exactly cheaping it with their... what's their record? What's the Rockies' record?
I just see here that their owner's name is Dick Monfort. So
yeah, they're 9-20. The Royals are 7-22. The White Sox are 8-21. The Royals are only one game behind the White Sox. And if you told me that before the season started, I'd feel really good.
Oh yeah, Royals one game back on Chicago on May 2nd. Hell yeah.
Royals are only one game back of the White Sox on May 2nd. This has been a really good start to the season.
What a year.
It's a disaster in Chicago. The South Side is going crazy, and that's actually the reality.
True either way. Yeah.
Yeah, so apparently the Rays have not infected the Royals, but the Royals infected the White Sox.
Do you know how hard it is to have 4 out of 5 teams in one division all be under 500?
It's hard. It's not easy.
Minnesota's 5 games over, too, so it's not like they've just been consuming everybody.
That damned balanced schedule. What happened to the 20 games against every single one of your divisional opponents?
I want to see what happens if the AL Central just gets locked in a room with itself. Who comes out on top, and more importantly, who comes out on bottom?
They would cannibalize each other.
or the exact opposite. They would just be like feeding each other cotton candy.
It would be a pillow fight.
Yes.
Whereas the East would be a duel.
Yes.
The Central would be like a slap fight, taking your glove off and slapping somebody across the face with the glove.
And, I haven't been paying super close attention this week with the draft. I know they've got the Orioles, so I have to imagine, that ought to be a pretty good matchup because the Royals and Orioles were kind of rebuilding around the same time.
That's right.
I have to think that the Orioles must also stink.
Yeah, they're both going through sort of the same thing. So when you look at the Orioles being 9-19,
that makes a lot of sense.
9 losses and 19 wins.
Wait a second.
Wait. Hold on.
Wait a second.
Yeah, but they won like 40 games last year.
Is that allowed?
Oh, wait, they were 83-79 last year.
How'd they do that?
They have a stacked farm system where they just keep feeding more and more players? Huh.
Hello, it's Mark Whitlow from Office Products Alliance. Have you ever considered where your dollar goes when you spend it? Did you know when you buy from a local company, 70% of your dollar stays in our community? When you buy from a national, non-local company, only 40% does. Now that's a difference.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, and Drake. Reminder, as you heard right there, Nate Bukaty. You can go out and see Nate at Tanner's at Metcalf on 143rd Boulevard's Taco Tuesday. You got great food and drink specials. You can grab an ice-cold Southwest Boulevard. And if you can't make it for lunch, check him out for happy hour or dinner. Nate is there for another hour or so. So 143rd and Metcalf, the Tanner's there, a little Boulevard Taco Tuesday. With one Nate Bukaty. Thanks, Nate. So we will talk some Rawls baseball here. Rawls baseball on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It is Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. Les, what's up? How you feeling today?
All good, buddy. What's going on with you?
Oh, not much. A lot of draft in my my life the last week or so.
Big week, big weekend. I'm happy with it. I really like their picks.
I spent the weekend all draft and checking the box score of the Royals. That was my Royals weekend.
And one of those was a W.
Yeah, exactly.
A 3-2 late inning W.
That's exactly. I looked at them like, okay, what'd they lose by? Oh, they won 3. Oh, they got a couple runs. Okay, well, Duran got. Well, how about that? Oh, look at him now. And then I watched just a little bit of Sunday's game, and that little bit was the 7-run inning. It's my fault.
Yeah, way to go.
I apologize to everybody.
Messed it up for all of us.
Watched that. I'm like, oh, it's a close game. How about that? It's not a close game anymore. So my Royals coverage consisted of looking at the box score, which is probably more than I think a lot of people did over the weekend when it was all draft and all Chiefs and NFL. 1 month into the season, why do the Royals have a knack of ending interest and really sucking out any positivity of the season in April?
Yeah, man.
They are so good at being bad in April.
It's tough. It's really tough to follow, but we're following the same type of, except for maybe the 2015, 2014 seasons, we keep following the same formula of not trading over the years, not paying big free agents, saying you want to win, but I get the whole idea of let's get our young guys up, let's get them a chance, let's get them experience. But a generation ago, it was let's get them experience, and then now they're good, and then now they leave. So it's we talked about it last week. Why not make the move and send Vinny Pasquantino a message that you're going to be good, we care about you, you're part of our future, so we're going to lock you down with a big contract. It's just it's the same way they go about things. And I know that there's probably people right now that are jazzed that, Drew Waters, he's coming back and he's going to be he's starting his rehab assignment. He's coming back. If you think Drew Waters is going to turn this slide over, you might want to pick a different sport to watch on TV, because that's not a knock with him. I mean, for me, he just watching his makeup. I mean, he did a few things well, but I really didn't see it. But that's fine. Good for him. He's in the big leagues, and, he's going to be healthy, and I'm glad he's going to be healthy.
We'll see. But
the same stuff.
With that, though, by the way, he is not starting his rehab assignment. So the Royals put out a tweet yesterday that Daniel Lynch and Drew Waters will start a rehab assignment. They then deleted that tweet and put out a tweet a little bit later that says Daniel Lynch will start his rehab assignment, that apparently Drew Waters had a setback. Not on his oblique. He had a setback or an injury to something non-oblique related.
My goodness.
So
rains it pours, man.
That's not even in a rehab game. It's not even in a game. He hadn't started his rehab assignment. He was going to start it today. He did not start his rehab assignment. So there's the update on Drew Waters, and he and Daniel Lynch going out at the same time to rehab.
I want you guys to know that after watching baseball this weekend, that at least on the offensive and the hitting side, I have an answer for you.
Okay.
I have an answer how it's going to be fixed. I'm telling you, Briscoe is in awe of this
waiting
right now, or confused. I can't
wait.
Are
I'm
you
just
in
thrilled.
awe, or are you okay? So
in a little doubt.
Both.
So I'm watching. First of all, it starts with me. I'm watching the Phillies and Dodgers play, and Brandon Marsh is up, and right now the center fielder for the Phillies, he's hitting .337, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's got 15 extra base hits of 7 at-bats. So in 89 at-bats, he's got 7 doubles, 4 triples, 4 homers. He's OPSing at 106.2. It's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm looking like, who's his hitting coach? And 2 minutes after Brandon Marsh's at-bat, or into his at bat, they see Kevin Long. I'm like, oh, there's K Long. K Long was in Double-A. I played with him in the Royals organization, right? He's been with the Yankees. He's been all over the place. And every single hitter that dude touches deals on the field, rakes on the field. And I get it's analytics, and I get the whole 2 hitting coaches and all that stuff now, but Kevin Long has become the hitting coach throughout the big leagues that treats everybody like their own individual instead of, this organization is going to shoot the gap. So this organization is going to start doing this. So this organization is going to start doing this. On the pitching side, okay, because in the minor leagues, the strikeouts are up and those stats are out there, and okay, that's great. Raid the zone whole thing. Okay, fine. But on the hitting side, at what point did we see – when's the last time we saw somebody work with someone in the offseason and they came out busting? Do you guys have an opinion on that? Because I do, but I'm going to wait. I'll give you the name of the player, and you get to guess the hitting coach. But when's the last time you heard any kind of news that the Royals had a player who was struggling, or maybe they were coming into the organization from different – whatever it may be, and they worked in the offseason with the Royals hitting coach, and it turned their career around?
I remember Raul Ibanez.
Boom! He nailed it. He nailed it. Who was the hitting coach? It wasn't Kevin Long, but it was. Do you remember? Or he just got fired shortly after.
I don't. Was it
Kevin Seitzer?
Was it Seitzer? I was going to guess Seitzer, but I was trying to put the timeline together. I'm like, was Seitzer after that? Was he in the late aughts?
He worked with him in the offseason, and then they ended up firing him shortly into the season under Ned Yost thing, or maybe it was for I think it was. But regardless of that, it was early on with him. But regardless of that, if you ask Raul Ibanez, what turned it around for you? He said, I just kept working with Seitzer, and he saw my swing, and he knew how to talk to me, and he knew what my gifts were, and we were able to expand on those and do those things. And so, yeah, I know it's only been a month, and it's the analytical, and they've hired these special analytical type people to be hitting coaches. Okay, that's great. But Kevin Long is an old school guy, and everybody that dude touches, it's like Midas, man. Their career turns around. They end up making millions of dollars. They end up making all-star teams. And yet, so then today, I'll finish the point with this. I'm reading my buddy Alex Duvall. He's part of Royals Farm Report. I used to work with him when he was a little dude. And, I mean, he's a high school and college pitcher. He understands the game. He's played it. He understands it. He wrote something recently about that he was concerned with Bobby Witt Jr. because he wasn't getting around on fastballs. Because, again, he's a pitcher, former pitcher. And now he's a teacher, but he's a baseball coach in high school, and he studies this.
I've had him on the zone many times. Currently, his teaching schedule gets in the way of us having him on until the summer.
Duvall, you jerk.
Let the kids down.
Stop teaching.
Why do you care about kids more than the zone?
No doubt. Let's go. But
you raid the zone, not raid the school.
Yeah. Damn it. He knew that Witt Jr. was getting abused by fastballs, and he said that he looked up this stat, or according to a stat that Alex looked up, Bobby Witt Jr.'s -6 run value is the second worst in Major League Baseball, and he's hitting .222. And so then as soon as I read that, I'm thinking they just talked about Kevin Long and how he worked with Brandon Marsh all off season, almost every day. And Kevin saw video on him and said, you know what, I can work with this guy. He's got a good foundation, got a good base. Worked with him, and then look what Brandon Marsh is doing now. And when's the last time we had that in Kansas City? Was it Raul Ibanez?
Yeah. What's really interesting is, you know, what a difference an offseason and now into the regular season makes. The confidence in this team and organization was they're keeping the hitting side because they were able to turn around so many careers in the minor leagues that once they switched to this group of hitting coaches and Zumwalt and these guys, that then MJ Melendez's career turned around, Nick Prado's career turned around. But at the time, yes. And a year and then
in the minor leagues,
right? And then Vinny Pasquantino was raking, and Michael Massey was coming on and being this prospect, and everything that took place at the offsite during COVID, that it was all of these things that were fixed. And so last year at this time, or not even at this time, but last year late in the season when they made the move to promote Zumwalt, it was like, okay, now look at the offense. So you feel good about that and how things have changed. We thought this was going to be a team that was built around pitching, and they couldn't score enough. Now the pitching has been awful, and Cal Eldred needs to go, but at least the players and the prospects are hitting the baseball, and you feel good about that. And now, this year, you don't feel good about that because they aren't hitting, sans Vinny Pasquantino. He's the only one that's hitting. Bobby Witt is getting on base at 260.
Olivares is doing pretty decent. I mean, give him some of that, but
that's fine.
Yeah.
And I like Edo. So, I mean, he's been okay. Actually, he's been better than okay.
He has been better than okay.
He's been better than okay. So
Yeah.
I'll give credit where credit is due to Edward Olivares. Maybe his defense is souring me overall on Olivares. But as far as just being at the plate, yeah, he's held his own. But guys that you're expecting to really count on moving forward with this team, MJ Melendez and Bobby Witt are supposed to be big parts of this team. And it doesn't mean that they cannot figure it out, because Mike Moustakas was supposed to be a big part of this team.
Mm-hmm.
And he got sent back down and had to figure it out and then brought back up. And so Alex Gordon got sent back down and then brought back up. Like, once you come up as a prospect that's high in the organization, doesn't necessarily mean you can't then be sent back down.
They did it to Billy Butler.
Billy Butler.
Going back to Mark Teahan did it,
Yeah.
and was the Royals September Player of the Month that year.
I bring that up because I do wonder if it is maybe time for MJ Melendez to have a stint in Omaha to try to figure out what's going on with his swing.
So let me pull.
If you can even do that, like, I don't think it's as easy as, we'll just go to Omaha and figure it out and then come back up. I mean,
right. And so I'll pull the Seren on you, because Seren's pulled this on me 100 times, and he was right 100 times. If not him, then who?
Well,
why can't Drew Waters play?
No, never mind.
No,
Setback.
I'll tell you, if Nick Prado.
Okay.
They brought up Nick Prado to play outfield. He can play right field. Olivares can play left field. You bring up Franmil Reyes for MJ Melendez, or excuse me, not Franmil, Freddie Fermin.
Fermin, yeah.
You bring up Freddie Fermin for
your
MJ
backup
Melendez.
catcher,
So
yeah.
you've got your backup catcher. You've already got Nick Prado up, and he can play right field. He can play left field. He can do some of those things on days that Pasquantino can DH. He can go and play first base. He gives you that flexibility. Now that Prado's up, it does give you the option of MJ Melendez going down to Omaha. That would be my answer to if not him, then who.
Got you. But that means you're putting Kyle Isbell in center field.
Yeah.
What's he hitting right now?
I mean, he's OPSing at
188 on the year
535.
for the average.
OPSing at 535.
Okay, so you call up Samad Taylor, who's raking, and is a third baseman, also center field, left field guy.
Mm-hmm.
So you let Samad Taylor get in there. You put Prado in the outfield, and then that becomes an Olivares. So you got here. I'll just say this. Here's my pick in your outfield right now. It'd be Olivares, Samad Taylor, and Prado.
Okay,
that's your outfield right now. Okay, at least give Samad Taylor a chance. He's been raking, and the guys up here are not. We're at that 100 at bat mark. Change that up a little bit. Then, if you're calling up Garcia, finally move Witt Jr. to third, if you're going to do that, okay? And put Garcia at short, or put Garcia at second if you want Witt Jr. to stay at short, and then put Duffy at third and play every day. And then you've got Vinny at first base, obviously Salvi catching. So some combination of Duffy has to be on the field. Kyle Isbell's had quite a few at bats in the big leagues over the last few years to say, are you going to be something at this level or not? And he's still below the Mendoza line. So when Lopez gets healthy, it's a race at second base. You get 3 days on, and then Massey gets 3 days on, and then Lopez gets 3 days on. One of you two, even though it's a team camaraderie thing, one of you two is going to earn this position. Show me who it's going to be.
Well, I mean, it can be team camaraderie, but
bottom line
competition.
It is competition, and competition breeds good things. I mean, it's life. That's business. That's sports. And so right now it's going to be Massey until Lopez has a shot to heal up from his appendectomy. And then once he's completely healthy, let those two battle it out.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the question of all the prognosticating movie things that we're talking about. Is any of this stuff going to get done? I mean, yeah, we got Garcia up because of the appendectomy, but are they going to move Witt Jr. to third?
If competition really mattered, Matt Duffy would be playing more. Like that's the thing that I keep running into. We've talked about him every week with you.
Yep.
Yeah, why isn't Matt Duffy playing more?
And
I'll go, I don't know.
And every week I'm left wanting. Every week I am left wanting. I'm being measured and left wanting in front of my TV set.
Yeah. Andy Rogers also reporting that there's going to be other moves that are made.
Right, I saw that too, yeah.
Later on today, sources saying that other moves are expected. I don't know what those moves are going to be. I guessed that, maybe that is MJ Melendez for Freddie Fermin, that it might be time to, send him back down.
Franmil Reyes has 2 options left.
Yeah, and apparently the only option they see with him is putting him at DH every day.
I do not get that because, again, we talked about this before we came on, besides hitting 20 points higher than Hunter Dozier, and I think I saw you looking it up, they're relatively almost the exact same player right now.
Yeah,
I mean the difference is that Hunter Dozier's exit velocity is really low.
And
he's got
Dozier's making more money.
Yeah, a lot more money.
Yeah, Franmil Reyes isn't part of the future. He's barely a part of the current.
Nope.
And his career might.
The Royals.
Well, he might be better as a part of the
See,
current.
now we're talking.
I don't know. But his career might be a part of the past. Because this was supposed to be like, okay, Franmil Reyes has come with the Royals. His agent talked about they specifically chose the Royals because of what their hitting department had done to turn around some careers in the minor leagues, that they wanted to do that with Franmil Reyes. He was crushing in spring training. You love spring training stats. You say they always translate. That's one of your main talking points is spring training stats and wins and losses. Always translate 100% across the board. And this is one of those just random things that's an outlier. No, that's not true. He was raking in spring training, and he's done nothing since.
Mm-hmm.
So he's playing DH. And, I brought this up yesterday. We were talking with Craig Brown, and I'm like, part of the issue that I see that we look at this team is, your best defensive first baseman is in right field. Your best third baseman is at shortstop. Your best shortstop is in Omaha, and your best right fielder is a backup catcher.
Yep. And not hitting very well.
And not hitting.
And striking out a lot.
So if you're really trying to maximize overall what you want your team to be, Pasquantino really should be the DH. And Nick Pratto, if he could hit, should be your first baseman because he's Hosmer-esque over at first base.
Yeah.
And your defense becomes better immediately with that. If Pratto continues to hit, he's been hitting since he was called back up. Hopefully that stays. He's not going to continue hitting 300, but hit enough to be representative that you can be on the team and it's not like you're a complete and total hole in the lineup.
Made me so happy to see him relaxed and hit and finally starting to show those signs of what they knew he could be.
Absolutely. So hopefully that continues. There's a lot of hope and a prayer with a number of things here. But, you can move on from somebody it's essentially you're exchanging Franmil Reyes for Nick Pratto. Sign me up.
Yeah.
If you're talking about DH and first base. Because right now it's first base, Pasquantino, DH, Franmil Reyes. Okay.
Yeah.
DH Pasquantino, first baseman Nick Pratto.
I think what will help this puzzle, too, is not just making one move. I would call up Samad Taylor. Look, you've got Nate Eaton doesn't play a lot. Nate Eaton is...
And he's back down on the farm.
Yeah. He's not...
Yeah.
He was hitting 040.
Yeah.
Right? And Reyes, you've Jackie Bradley Jr. You've got a lot of guys that are on this roster that are doing absolutely nothing when they play, let alone if someone goes down or you need a replacement and you look back behind you at your bench, the one guy on your bench, Duffy, should be playing every day. There's just nothing there. And so when Pratto came up, both for him, for just the fact that we need him, to see him hit and to see him spitting on even close pitches that were balls and just looking like he knew what he was doing at the plate, hitting balls hard, that warmed my heart. I'm hoping that that's step one into this turnaround.
And I'm hoping they can do the same thing with MJ Melendez.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Pratto was brought up earlier with Isbell on the paternity list, and he struggled.
Yeah.
He didn't get hits. He was in there. He was lost.
And
we knew they were going to send him back down. He gets sent back down.
Yeah.
Goes in the minors, comes back up. Maybe there's another comfort level. He's been up at the big leagues. Now this is his third time up. You're figuring it out. And, hopefully this isn't just a hot 2 or 3 games, that it's, something that starts to click with Pratto. That's the hope with an MJ Melendez because right now he's completely lost. I had mentioned this yesterday and today again when we're talking about, other moves that may be made. While MJ Melendez was struggling to make contact and the batting average was low, he was still walking. It was still one of those to where, he's still getting on base. But since the Braves series, he has had 2 walks. He's been in the lineup every day, and he's been batting either first, second, third, or one game he batted fourth. So all of those plate appearances he has had since that Braves game, that Braves series, have been in the top third of the lineup.
You know, the
And he's walked
non-pressure part of the
twice.
lineup, right?
And he's walked twice, and he's striking out way too much, and he's not, hitting the ball consistently. Like, yeah, there's a reason you can't score because you got Franmil Reyes that isn't doing anything. At times, Jackie Bradley's in there, which you knew offensively was going to be an issue. MJ Melendez is really lost right now at the plate because he's not even walking anymore. Bobby Witt Jr.'s on-base percentage is now down to 260. Not batting average on-base percentage is now down to 260. Like, yeah, there's a reason why you can't score runs is because you've got too many just dead spots and holes in your lineup.
Yep.
Maybe Garcia helps out. We'll find out. We'll see. Oh, and by the way, Dozier. I didn't even mention Dozier.
But it brings, even if he doesn't hit, we can't expect Garcia to come up and hit 350.
No.
And if they call up Samad Taylor, we can't expect him to. But sometimes the shuffling the deck, something new, just gives you a new perspective. I mean, that's what's going to be good for MJ Melendez. We know he's going to be an everyday big leaguer. Just right now, he's still young and hasn't figured it out yet. We're not saying, oh, you're not going to figure it out unless you hit 320 with 25 bombs and 100 RBIs and you're a perennial all-star. No one, those are just all bonuses when you have your homegrown talent, which is great. But just like Bobby Witt Jr., Melendez is going to be a great everyday big leaguer, but sometimes you need a little bit of seasoning back down. And the Royals, the big league club, needs something new. You need some kind of new spark. I was reading Craig Brown with Into the Fountains. They're boring. That's what he says. I mean, he says they're boring. It's not just about the losing. He talks about how they're boring and they're lifeless and all that. And so it's almost like there's this funk of expectation smell that we're going to lose. Well, here we go again. We're going to lose. We're going to lose. We're going to lose. And it happens almost every single day. And so now's the time. We're getting to the 100 at-bats. Send some guys down. Shuffle the deck a little bit. Get some other guys some experience. Because if these guys aren't figuring it out, are we going to be okay with, well, you know what? They'll figure it out in July when you need to go 100 for 4 just to go 10 points in your average up. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's frustrating that I don't see more, but hopefully what Annie Rogers said in her article was moves, not a move.
Yeah.
Moves are going to happen because it's time.
11 games since that Braves series. MJ Melendez has 43 plate appearances, has 3 extra base hits. He's getting on base at 230. And he's slugging at just over 300. He has an OPS of 560 in the last 11 games. Hey, small sample size there, Josh. But he also has 2 walks and 14 strikeouts in those 11 games.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put somebody in the top 30 of your lineup that has trouble making contact as often as MJ Melendez does.
Hey, remember, Bobby Witt Jr.'s almost a 1-to-4 walk-to-strikeout ratio right now. He's striking out quite a bit, too. I mean, he's got 100 at-bats now, and 25 of those, every 4th at bat, he's striking out. So, I mean, it's 25 strikeouts he has, and just over 100 at bats. He's 7 walks. I mean, it's an epidemic up and down this lineup of not walking and striking out.
And it's weird, and we'll take a time out here, but it's weird that Quatrero moves guys around in the lineup and different things. But again, it's not to pick on MJ Melendez. All right, I like MJ Melendez.
I do too.
I think he can be really good. He's
going to be good.
And I've loved his improvement in right field. And maybe that's where the batting has taken a step back, is because he spent so much time improving and learning right field, because it's clear the work he's put in is paying off at the big league level. But as much as Quatrero moves some people around, he has not done that with MJ Melendez. MJ Melendez has 105 plate appearances this year. All but 14 of them have come batting first, second, or third in the lineup. He's batted 6th twice, and he's batted 4th once. 14 of the you're talking about 91 plate appearances of 105 have been batting first, second, or third for a guy who's getting on base at 260.
And that's with protection, with Salvi hitting behind him,
and
or
Vinny
hitting behind him.
Yes.
And so it's not like Cy Young's pitching against him every time either. They have to pitch to him because they know what's waiting behind him, because Vinny and Sal are hitting the ball. So, yeah, that's another sign of why do you keep throwing him out there in the top of the lineup if you insist on throwing him out there every day?
And the same thing with Bobby Witt. I mean, you've got 2 of your top 3 hitters on your team this year are getting on base at 260. I mean, at some point you just have to simply say, okay, maybe we move some things around. Let's put Vinny Pasquantino batting first. Well, that's unconventional, but I'd rather him get more at bats during the game. Because it ain't exactly like he's coming up with a lot of guys on base, because the guys in front of him are getting on base at 260. They ain't getting on base at 400. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, continue hanging out with Les Norman next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson, Josh Briscoe, Drake, and Les Norman.
Hi.
Hello. He is breaking the norm. Is Les Norman, which the Royals would break the norm. He's presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell him Les sent you. This can come off as an excuse. It can come off as a reason. It can come off as context. You know, we'll see.
So I'm not your wife, so you have a better chance at me actually listening to this.
There we go.
See?
Great. So the Royals have played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 series so far this year. 8 of the 9 series are against teams that are above 500. The only one is the Giants, who are 11-17. That's the only series they've won. They took 2 of 3 from the team that's 11-17. Even including the Giants, the teams they have played so far in their 29 games, those teams are a combined 113-88. So they've played some awesome teams. Minnesota's in first place. The Rangers are in first place. Atlanta's in first place. The Diamondbacks are a half game out of first place. Angels
113-88, you said?
113-88.
I'm going to do some math.
Yeah. What's that over the course of a season?
Well, I have 2 types of math that I actually like to do with
Okay,
it.
great.
Algorithms.
Math.
You know I like math.
Toronto is in third place, even though they're 18-11. Because the Rays are 23-6.
Bo Bichette's already had 4 3-hit games this year.
And Baltimore is 19-9, so that's why Toronto is a game and a half behind Baltimore and 5 games out of first because the Rays started off 13-0. Their schedule lightens up after Baltimore, which is now throw in 3 more. You can add 19-9 to that.
Yep.
So you can make it 132 and 97 is what the record's going to be after they're done with Baltimore. They then will have mixed in over the next month 3 against Oakland, 7 against Chicago. They'll have 3 against Detroit, 3 against the Nationals, 3 against the Rockies, and 2 against the Cardinals. Oakland is 6-23. The White Sox are 8-21. Cardinals are 10-19. The Tigers are 10-17. The Nationals are 10-18, and the Rockies are 9-20. So that, to me, is where June 1st, we might be having a completely different conversation. Either way.
I hope so.
A completely
On
different
a good side.
Right, but either way, a completely different conversation in, hey, you know what? They ran into a number of really good teams, and they weren't ready to compete anyway. So playing teams that are ready to win in the playoffs and maybe a World Series, they went 7-22 against those teams. That makes sense. 8-24, maybe they take 1 from Baltimore. And against these other teams that are bottom feeders like them, oh, look, they win a couple of games over 500. That would be maybe the positive side. The negative side would be, holy crap, they're still losing to those bad teams too. Now it's really disastrous for this. So
And
the second half of May is pretty crucial.
If you take the Royals games out, those teams are 91-81, which makes them 529. They're a little over 500,
but still
not counting beating the Royals.
So what's a 529 winning percentage for a team over 162?
The winning percentage is 529.
No, I'm sorry.
The record?
So it's 86.
That's out of
So
out of
they-
172 games.
They
so
have
it's
averaged
86 and 76.
Yeah, they have averaged playing a team outside of those teams beating the Royals, which they've done a lot of, still an 86 win team through the course of the first month. They weren't done any favors by the schedule, but also they have not been playing good baseball. So it ain't just that, well, they're going up against...
It is not just the
They're going up against
column.
the Rays every single game. They haven't been playing good baseball. They haven't been hitting the ball. They haven't been pitching it when need be, which is why they're 7-22. They've had opportunities to maybe be 11-18, but even 11-18, you're like, well, they'd be in third place. They'd be ahead of Detroit. It's Minnesota, Cleveland, and then the Royals would be 2 games behind Cleveland. They'd be 5 games out of first place somehow if they would have found a way to win some of those games you just thought they should have. Oddly enough, that's where they would be because the Central sucks right now. It can be viewed as an excuse, but I do think this next group of teams after the Orioles is pretty crucial for where we think this Royals team is going to be because they're playing a lot of other teams that are rebuilding or trying to lose or have younger players that they're trying to see what they have, mixed in with some teams that are like the White Sox, that they're having meltdowns in Chicago, like the Cardinals.
Or Pedro Grifol in his first year.
So I said the Rays have not infected the Royals, but the Royals infected the White Sox, unfortunately for Pedro Grifol.
And look, people listening right now, too, need to understand that what you're saying, Jason, it's legit. I mean, this was a stretch of really good teams. I mean, the record does speak for itself, and we watched those games, or we're at those games when they were in town at the homestand, and so that does have something to do with it. However, over this next month, yes, we're going to still watch and all that, but I think there's still ways to go about your business, and the whole what I want to compare, and I haven't done this analysis yet. I want to compare how the Royals are striking out against some of these good pitchers that they've faced against how some other teams are striking out against those same pitchers.
Interesting.
And we do that comparison. So is it really that the Royals are just facing good teams, or are we just getting beat up because we just have so many guys struggling and we need to make some sweeping changes?
Well, the only way it goes from less of an excuse and more of a reason is if they play good baseball against some of the lesser teams and win a number of those games and are at or above 500 over that stretch of teams. And you can
we'll find out.
Okay, they played some good teams, and they're a younger team trying to figure it out, and they're not ready to compete right now. They've already said that. They're going to go through this season seeing what they have and then reassess at the end of this year. So this is kind of a figure things out year while they're going up against teams that are trying to win a ring year for them. But it becomes an excuse if they continue playing bad baseball against bad teams too.
Absolutely. It will. And no club, no big league club, even if it's the A's, no, if this is your major league team that you're putting on the field, no big league club should be struggling to get to 10 wins by mid-May. Shouldn't be. I can't end that with anything else.
Yes,
I can't. I mean, no big league team should struggle, even if you're bad, should struggle to get to 10 wins by mid-May. That's 45 days of baseball to start a season. You shouldn't be fighting. You can be under 500. You can be 5 games, 10 games under 500, but 15 games under, and there's not a promise forward. I mean, But
you fixed it in the break, though,
I
right?
did fix it in the break.
Go
I've
ahead.
got a new lineup.
With the
I've
fix.
got a new lineup.
With the fix.
Okay. Now I'm not. This is not saving the season.
Shohei Ohtani's leading off. You acquired him in a blockbuster deal.
I did. I'm gonna hit Trout last.
Ooh, fun!
Just to make him mad and then put him back in the 2-hole. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
but you know what? You're turning over the lineup though.
Yeah.
I mean, your number 9 hitter's kind of like now you got a new number 1.
You're right. So understand this lineup I'm putting is this is going to shake things up.
Yeah.
The people that should be playing, right? It does kind of deplete your bench because the only bench guy I have playing every day in Duffy.
Oh no,
but,
they don't have a bench.
Too bad. Deal with it. Okay, so here's what I would do until Samad Taylor, he's in this lineup.
Okay.
Until he would get some at bats, and then I would switch and move something around. So you're going to hear the first, you're going to think, wait, he's not a leadoff guy. Well, he can be until we get a little switch. So I'm leading off with Olivares playing right field. He makes some decent contact. Yes, he's a power guy, so eventually he can put some power numbers up. I'm going to move him down sooner than later.
He's OPSing over 800. I'll take him batting
so
first.
give me batting first. I would hit Duffy second because he can handle the bat. Not a ton of strikeouts. He's hitting, even the hardest thing to do as an offensive player is to sit. Oh, I'm playing on Sunday, and then go out and get 2 and 3 hits. But that's what he's doing. Okay, I'd hit Duffy second. I'd hit Vinny third. I hit Perez fourth. I'd hit Prado fifth, the way he's hitting right now. I would move Witt Jr. down to the 6 hole. And to stop worrying about you're a superstar, you have to produce. Just go down in the bottom of the lineup and just get some at-bats and get your swing fixed. Then I'd hit Samad Taylor. Garcia, put him near the bottom of the order as he comes up and plays shortstop and see what he does. And then there's also a potential leadoff hitter if he can handle the calm and the surreal part of being in the big leagues. And then the whole Massey Lopez, who's going to win this thing by All-Star break competition, and then run with that. That's my 9 playing right there.
I don't know that I agree with the strategy of having guys batting first and second that have on-base percentages of 344 and 400. I'm not sure that that's the right way to go about it. I feel like maybe 266 and 260 on base percentages batting first and second.
Yeah.
It seemed like the right way to go about it, or at least that seems like the way the Royals are continuing to pound their head against a brick wall.
Yeah.
But you want Edward Olivares batting first with his .344 on base percentage, and you want Matt Duffy in the lineup who's getting on base at .400.
You heard what I said.
You're crazy like a fox, man. That seems like that's reverse engineering. That's hustling backwards there, Les. I don't know.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, that's weird how some of those. I would like to see that. A couple of guys who are actually hitting the ball, handling the ball, getting on base, walking, putting the ball in play, not striking out as often as some of the others. I know Edward Olivares has 17 strikeouts. He's got 5 walks, but he's still, on base percentage 55 points higher than his batting average. I'll take it. That'd be nice to see those guys batting first and second in ahead of Vinny and Salvi.
Yep. Because they're going to have protection, which means they're going to hit. Sal doesn't need protection. He just hits like Sal does. Prado's swinging a good bat right now. We know it's not going to be at the same pace, but he is swinging a good bat. Let him get in some RBI situations as long as he doesn't melt down mentally and think that, I'm hitting fifth, so I gotta. Big mistake to do that. But let Bobby Witt Jr. work on his swing, go down and just again, Alex Duvall picked up on it, man. His swings on fastballs, we know when he gets right, he's going to crush the ball. I mean, I've watched him take batting practice where the end of fantasy camp we were completing fantasy camp and they were down there hitting. The raw power, the talent, the physical ability of that kid, he's going to be an incredible major leaguer. He's just having a rough start for him. But there's no reason why those other 2 guys can't be up. I at least one platoon situation at second base I think would be healthy. It would really spark this lineup. But this is just a change for me that these are the numbers right now. And then you can change it. Like I said, if it's Garcia or Taylor that are hitting well, or you put them at the bottom to let them relax and play good defense, one of those guys could fill into the leadoff spot if they're making good enough contact and getting on base. Their on-base percentage is good, and then Olivares can slide down into more of an RBI-type role. I like it. I like it a lot.
Vinny Pasquantino, as we're talking about maybe guys being on base in front of him, Pasquantino has 8 doubles and 5 home runs this year. He has 10 RBIs. 8 doubles, 5 home runs, 10 runs driven in for a guy who is hitting extra base hits, but can't get RBIs because he can't have people on in front of him.
Right.
So.
And by the way, who did I hit first and second that are getting on? Oh, Olivares and Duffy. Yeah, getting on base.
That's fine. Whatever.
That's the frustrating part to me. I know
he's got 4 solo shots. 4 of his 5 home runs have been solo shots. That's just. Why are you selfish? Why not hit a home run with men on base, Vinny? Why are you hitting home runs with nobody on base?
This is Monday Night Softball. Save your home runs.
He's got with 7 of his 8 doubles and 4 of his 5 home runs have been with nobody on base. He has 1 double and 1 home run with men on base. He is still getting on base at 320 with men on base. But again, he's got 7 doubles and 4 home runs when the bases are empty. So, other than that, I think they should definitely keep throwing the guys out there who are first and second combined on base of 520.
So let me ask you guys this. My time is limited, so I have to ask you both this question. Why is it then, if the guys that are why do you guys feel like the Royals are continuing to do this? Is it because we want them to get at bats? Is it because it's our best option? Is it because we know they're going to come out of it? Why is it that this lineup, why Melendez is still hitting in the top 3? Why not let Bobby Witt Jr. go down a little bit and let the guys that are getting on base? Why is this not a managerial decision in your guys' opinion? I don't have an answer, but I really want to ask you guys because we always talk baseball. Because as I look at this lineup, and you're giving me the stats and we talk about it, look, we're always trying to find at least something positive to talk about. And we're going to get railed for, it's always negative. And then my response is, are you listening or watching? I mean, it is what it is. We have to call it like it is. I'm a former player, and I don't want to be negative either, but you have to call it like it is. You can be mature about it's just negative. It's not good right now. So you guys answer me. Why not an Olivares Duffy type situation in the 1 and 2 hole? What are they doing that they will not do this?
Are they protecting the psyche of Witt and Melendez by moving them down in the lineup? I don't know. Are they just simply saying these are going to be the guys and where they're going to be batting, so that's what we're going to be doing? Is it building off of when Matheny put MJ Melendez last year at the leadoff spot and batted him first or second, where it was like, oh, wait, this is interesting. He's producing, so that's cool. And just saying we've seen it, so it's going to happen. We saw it in a limited sample size, so it's going to happen. I don't know. I'm not sure what the case is, but clearly it's not working, and yet they keep doing the same thing while switching around other spots. Melendez and Bobby Witt are batting first and second.
And it's not like you can do what you want, but they gave the Bobby Witt Jr. bobblehead away opening day. So there's probably not going to be another Bobby Witt Jr. bobblehead. So if it's about just putting him up in the lineup so the fans will come to games, that's not happening. It's not. It's not. I saw something. I mean, the Cardinals are in the same fate on the other side of the state. I mean, I was looking at this tweet the other day where there was a broken window, and this guy started out his tweet, and I thought, uh-oh, there's some area where someone's breaking into cars, and the way he made it sound is like, yeah, I saw there were 2 tickets inside this car, and I thought, okay, someone broke in to steal the tickets, and he said, no, I broke in and I left 4 more tickets. And I'm like, so they're feeling us too. St. Louis isn't used to this, so
they're not.
There's got to be some kind of change. They're not going to win this year. Okay, fine. You want to develop guys, fine. But when you're going to blow them up mentally or not have them understand there are consequences when you're not producing. This is the big leagues, and we do value you, and we know you're going to be a good big league player like Witt Jr. and Melendez are and will be statistically. It'll catch up. But sometimes, like with Melendez, you got to go down a little bit. You have to go down and get some seasoning. It wakes you up. It makes you rebuild your thin skin to thick skin if you don't have it. It builds up your mental. And I'll tell you one thing, as my manager in AAA, there's nobody in the organization that's going to shoot you straight and get you better in your mind than Jersh as the manager at AAA. There's nobody that will give you a better conversation like, dude, you sucked when you were there. This is what I noticed. This is what I saw. So come down here and get some ABs and only work on this and don't pout. Get your act together and get to a point where I can call you up again. I can give you that meeting like, hey, you're going back to the big leagues. You've got it. And he'll encourage you at that time. So it's not just the penalty of sending you down to the minor leagues. You've got a huge asset in Mike Jerschley managing the AAA club. Go down there, play for Jersh if you're struggling here. Jersh is a great developer of talent, and then see what happens.
It's not a punishment. It's an
not.
opportunity to improve.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, no player likes getting sent down, whether it's because you just filled up because someone was on paternity or someone broke a finger or whatever. Okay, I got my taste, but now I'm going that. It's not that. But it's not one of the. No one likes to get sent down. It stinks because it brings the reality of what you were doing up here wasn't good enough to stay. But again, the key word is reality. You're not. Send him down. Get him with the right people. Let him talk. Let them, whoever gets sent down, let them talk with the psychologist and the counselor and all that if they need it. And if they don't, no problem. And then just go get right. You're going down so you can come back. Because if you as a manager and a general manager and people in the organization continue to let these guys stink, you're doing 2 things. 1, you're making them feel entitled, like it doesn't matter how good I do. I can stay. Number 2, it's showing that you don't care about your fan base and that you're just not going to do anything about it.
We're going to call you up to host in the top of the hour. Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell him Les sent you. He's hosting Breaking the Norm. He's getting the call up.
I am. I just got the call up, man.
More than a cup of coffee. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling More Zone next.
Take the show with you by listening live on
We continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thank you to Les Norman. There is some good baseball news out there. Vahe Gregorian at the Kansas City Star has a story up and a conversation that he had with Bob Kendrick for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is looking at an estimated $25 million project to build a new museum adjacent to the O'Neill Center at 18th and the Paseo. So a new building, expansion for the museum, and there's, we've talked to Bob Kendrick, and he's talked about that they feel like, there's so much more of the story to tell. And it's not exactly like they're landlocked or complaining about the square footage, but, they certainly could grow. That they're just now starting to sort of present things in a way that people are more open to hearing. And now you've got MLB The Show. The Negro Leagues Baseball Museum is all over the place right now. Mm-hmm. And Bob Kendrick has done such an amazing job in being the curator of that and the vision that he has had for what it can be to continue to grow it to now it has grown outside of the walls, specifically the brick and mortar of the museum, to where the $25 million initiative, they had the Thanks a Million Buck initiative, and now they're looking at $25 million project building a brand new museum. And and it's going to be awesome. And there's a really extensive story and details at the Kansas City Star from Vahe Gregorian. But there's some good baseball news that already a gem of the city is growing because of so many people that have put in so much time and effort and money and resources, and Bob Kendrick essentially has put in his life's work for this.
Yeah. This snippet here from Bob in the story, the vision is essentially to build a Negro Leagues campus right there at the corner of 18th and Paseo, and as I'm calling it, the gateway into historic 18th and Vine. To have this magnificent structure welcoming people into the district and to have it there where the history was made. They've done nothing but cool, incredible things, not just to preserve the history, but to bring it to life, to see the next few steps that Bob and everyone else there at the NLBM we're going to be able to do at the next level building this. Looks absolutely incredible. Some of the artist renderings, too. Beautiful.
Yeah. But, man, I'm excited to see what the vision would be of Bob Kendrick if you sort of have somewhat of a blank slate to build from as what the museum can become. Awesome news. Awesome news.
WHB Kansas City.
Attention everyone, are you ready for the summer heat? Let ProBuilt Pool and Patio get you started on your summer prep. As the largest provider of fiberglass swimming pools, we have the biggest selection and offer the fastest installation times. At ProBuilt Pool and Patio, we proudly stand behind every home we serve. We make dreams come true and deliver them right to your backyard. The best time to get a pool is right now. Call us today for your free quote. ProBuilt Pool and Patio, 816-786-3893, or go to ProBuiltPatio.com.
Do you struggle with pain, anxiety, sleep, or lack of energy? It's time for you to talk with CBD American Shaman's expert consultants about the power of high-quality hemp oil. And while supplies last, you can stop by your local CBD American Shaman location today to pick up the limited autographed Tim Grunhard's book, View from the Center. While you're there, pick up some free samples, and they even have great products for your pets. See?
That last bite was a mistake.
It happens to the best of us.
Mistake.
You got to buy a steak? It's incredible.
It's a Miss Steak, not a Mr. Steak. It's not a married steak. It's Miss.
Like Miss
Not a Mrs.
Pac-Man,
Steak. Yeah,
but
that's
for
right.
beef.
Single
It's
Pac-Man.
a steak that's been in the freezer in the break room for over a year.
You
that
thought
would
that
be
out?
a mistake.
No off on that?
That would be a mistake. Deuce Vaughn is apparently going to wear number 42.
Yeah, the jersey number's out for the Cowboys, and there's some weird ones.
Why wouldn't he wear 22 with the Cowboys? Who has ever been a good running back to wear number 22 for the Cowboys? It seems like it would be wide open.
I can't think of one, but the Cowboys roster has cornerback Jordan Lewis wearing just number 2, which running backs could wear now. No number 12 or 22. But you go, oh, well,
There is no number 22 on the Cowboys right now.
32 would make some sense, right? I mean, that one's available and still has a deuce at the end. Number 32 for the Dallas Cowboys right now, Ronald Jones. So Deuce is wearing 42. Mozzie Smith, a nose tackle, wearing 58. Kind of weird.
Interesting.
Linebacker wearing 35. Another corner wearing 37. We're in an era of weird numbers at the NFL level, especially for teams that have a lot of retired ones. Wish Deuce was wearing number 8. Finally give the Cowboys a good number 8 to cheer for.
Do the Cowboys have retired jerseys or retired numbers?
Like officially or unofficially?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually officially.
Well, this story here has retired in quotation marks, but I'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Roger Staubach was 12. Emmitt Smith, 22. Somebody wore 8, but no one's sure who.
No, not sure. Someone that has already been surpassed by number 15.
This says 3 teams, the Raiders, the Falcons, and the Cowboys traditionally do not retire jersey numbers.
So then is it just understood?
They're just not giving them out. I
Just
think if Deuce
understood
said, can I get 22? They'd go,
No, you can't actually.
No, we're still selling 22 jerseys, actually.
So now I'm going to go to the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm going to go to You Is a Cowboy, and go to number 22 and see who all has worn number 22. And the last player to wear number 22, oddly enough, is a fellow by the name of Emmitt Smythe? Tommy Smythe? Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith. And he barely got it from Victor Scott, who wore it for 3 years for the Cowboys. So luckily it was available. George Peoples wore it for a year. Wade Manning wore it for a year. Bob Hayes, he had it for 11 years or 9 years. Amos Bullocks for 2, and then Billy Butler for 1. Billy Butler didn't wear 22.
Weird. That's a shock.
Yeah.
The Chiefs have they're among the most retired numbers, at least from this list I'm looking at on Wikipedia. I'm curious
like officially
if
retired.
Well, that's what I'm kind of scrolling through to see if anyone has worn any of these numbers recently. But yeah, I mean, this doesn't include anyone from recent years. The most recent one being Derek Thomas, Emmitt Thomas before that, but. Jan Stenerud with 3, Lynn Dawson 16, Emmitt Thomas 18, Abner Hayes 28. Has there been a 28? Probably not. Stone Johnson 33, Mac Lee Hill 36, DT 58, Willie Lanier 63, Bobby Bell 78, Buck Buchanan 86.
Yeah, there hasn't been a 58. I mean, I'm just thinking there's been nobody that's worn 58 since DT. But is that jersey officially? Probably should know that, but I don't know. I know that there's the Chiefs Hall of Fame, which, by the way, the X Factor is going into, which is oddly enough, he can't even be at the stadium, but now he's going to the Hall. Oh, Dante Hall. Okay,
different. Yeah,
they said the
human
X Factor.
joystick is what I go with now. To avoid
it was
confusion.
odd. But Dante Hall will be going into the Chiefs Hall of Fame, and so we've got that right. But it's always that okay, this jersey is off limits. Maybe that's why the Chiefs are one of the teams to say, hey, we would like to open up more jersey numbers for different positional groups.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Because remember, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together, but remember we had talked about, the Chiefs were one of the teams that, proposed this jersey number change. But some teams were like, why are we doing this? Makes it more confusing. If you're the Cowboys, you're like, why are we doing this? We've got all numbers available except for 4. The Chiefs were like, well, we got a lot of numbers that we're not giving out. So if we could have that flexibility, since we've got 90 dudes on our roster heading into mini camps and OTAs. Now you can double up on the numbers there, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, it would make a little more sense. But Deuce Vaughn wearing number 42. because Emmitt Smith is selfish and wore 22, and Ronald Jones is 32.
It'd be a hilarious reason for Deuce Vaughn to have a long NFL career with 42 on his jersey. I could have been 32, but Ronald Jones was there.
Yeah. I was about to say homage for Sproles, but Sproles was 43.
Yeah.
So close. Is he saying he's going to be just a one tick lesser player than Darren Sproles in his career?
You'd take that. That's okay.
He's an inch shorter than Sproles.
There it is. That's what it is. Okay.
5'6", 5'5". So, I mean, that's what he's going with. It just makes sense. It makes perfect sense to go with that. Thank you to Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, joining us here, talking some Royals, talking some other things as well, and we'll see what moves are going to be made, expected to be made, as Andy Rogers says that some more moves. Nicky Lopez, appendectomy, emergency appendectomy. Nick Pratto, Michael Garcia recalled from AAA. So we'll see. And then Andy Rogers said other moves are expected later on today. The Chiefs are not picking up the fifth-year option on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Matt Derrick reporting that. That is expected, very much expected. Was that the broken heart emoji by Edwards-Helaire that he put out, the cryptic tweet? Was that just maybe he and his girlfriend had a falling out? Certainly could have been that. But as we know, every single professional athlete, the only tweets they make are about their career. So by him putting that out there, it meant it was specifically about his career. And people thought maybe he's being traded. Mm-hmm. Or he was notified that, that fifth-year option is not going to be picked up. And May 2nd's the deadline. Doesn't really matter, but we knew that wasn't going to take place. And we'll see when they ultimately sign Jerick McKinnon what the details of that looks like. But the running back room for the Chiefs right now with Pacheco, McKinnon, and Edwards-Helaire, Deneric Prince, people like him. I like the running back room for the Chiefs right now. And I know Edwards-Helaire has had his injury issues, and McKinnon has been talked about as somebody having injury issues. But, I looked at the fallacy that was the McKinnon injury prone. He's missed a couple of seasons with bigger injuries. But if we talk about injury prone, Edwards-Helaire is injury prone. Edwards-Helaire has had a shoulder, a hip, an ankle, a hamstring. McKinnon had a knee and a knee. But he's played a lot, and he had not this last year, but the year before, he missed a few games with, was it a hamstring with McKinnon?
I think that's right.
That he missed a number of games.
He was on the injury report all year this most recent season, but he kept catching touchdowns.
That's fine.
He played 17 games and caught, how many total touchdowns did he end up with?
10.
10 total. Just a ridiculous run for him.
Knock on wood, but Pacheco seems durable. And then Edwards-Helaire and McKinnon. Thank you. And we'll see who they have as their fourth running back after that. But I like the running back room. I think it's fine. I think it's good. McKinnon, I think you needed him for twofold. He's the veteran of the group. He's obviously really good in the passing game. And he was a security blanket for Patrick Mahomes in pass protection. And when you've got a guy in Juwan Taylor who's going to be playing left tackle for the first time, at least you had some evidence of Orlando Brown moving over to the left side and playing as a full-time left tackle. You don't have that except for projectability for Juwan Taylor. So having McKinnon in there in obvious passing situations to help out if need be is great. It's a nice security blanket. And he meant a lot to the Chiefs offense last year when they were utilizing him in the passing game, and just an extra element that teams have to worry about with McKinnon in there. Because I wasn't going to buy into Pacheco, they're going to use him more in the passing game. Okay. Because back-to-back years we heard that about Edwards-Helaire. Edwards-Helaire's, even 3 years in a row, Edwards-Helaire's rookie season, throughout the entire offseason after he was drafted, you're talking about a guy that might be Christian McCaffrey. He could have 50, 60 targets on this team. Didn't happen.
Basically a wide receiver.
That next offseason, he's been working a lot in the passing game. They've been utilizing him a lot and working on different routes. He's going to be more part of the passing game than the year before. Oh, okay, great. Last year, this is the first time he's fully healthy in an offseason, and he's going to be a big part of the passing game now. They'll utilize him in different ways now that he's had a full offseason to train and get ready for the year because he's not battling the different injuries that he's had. Okay. So I won't buy into Pacheco's going to be used more in the passing game here, or that Pacheco using more in the. No, McKinnon, you know what he is. You know what he brings to the table. He is that guy.
I do think they'll end up increasing Pacheco's role in the passing game as a matter of a slider, of a fader, not of Jerick McKinnon not being on the team. But I do think they want to see how Pacheco can get more involved that way. He also has the size to hold up in pass pro in a way that Clyde just never really did. So I think he becomes a little more versatile that way. But the real moral of the story for me is that we have done a couple of face turns on Clyde Edwards-Helaire because they should not have picked up his fifth-year option. They never should have drafted him in the first round. But that doesn't mean they have to treat him like Dylan Brooks right now. Open up Twitter and look and see what happened to Dylan Brooks. The report from Shams Charania is that the Memphis Grizzlies will not bring Dylan Brooks back under any circumstances.
What?
That was the phrasing of the quote. If every basketball player in the universe except Dylan Brooks was abducted by aliens, the Memphis Grizzlies would say, we'll rebuild with somebody else. Like, this is an unbelievable
We will
turn
teach
of
somebody
phrase.
how to play basketball.
We would rather teach other dudes how to play basketball than try to bring Dylan Brooks back here again. The Chiefs shouldn't be sending Clyde on that path. It's the reason that I never, and here's the thing, it could still happen. This is just not what I would do. I never thought trading Clyde for a seventh made a ton of sense unless you could move all that money and depending on how that cap space would clear out. I certainly never thought just cutting him outright made sense. He had some value for this team. It never lived up to his value as a draft pick. He should not be your presumed day one starter. Isaiah Pacheco is your first and second down running back. Jerick McKinnon is your third down back. And Clyde is a guy who could be on the field any of those three downs, and you're accepting a downgrade, right? He would be, you'd rather have Pacheco out there on first and second. You'd rather have McKinnon out there on third, and then we'll see where Deneric Prince ends up. Our guy Kent Swanson said that it's a similar swing that they made last year on Pacheco with size and speed and all of those elements. But running back rooms, I mean, Teicher mentioned it earlier in the show too, running back rooms thin out every year quickly. Somebody gets hurt seriously, somebody gets banged up. The Chiefs have always brought in a veteran of some sort. Pretend that they did cut Clyde and they brought in DeAndre Swift, who the Lions traded to the Eagles, same draft class, traded to the Eagles for pennies during the draft. If Clyde was the Lions pick and the Chiefs had taken Swift and you were doing the exact inverse, you go, well, the Chiefs are bringing in a former first-round running back on this deal for a couple $1 million this year to fill out the running back room behind the second-year player, the old vet, and the rookie undrafted free agent in Prince. We would all like that. We go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Maybe it's a little bit pricey, but that's where the Chiefs are at, just in the reality of his cap number at this point.
So to your point, and your tweet last night about, Edwards-Helaire has value. Like he's a fine player. They've already spent the first-round draft pick on him. They don't get to take that back. By releasing him or trading him, you don't get the first-round draft pick back. They've already spent that on him. And in an overall running back room, again, he's a serviceable player. What are the draft picks that are most criticized from Brett Veach?
Clyde, Breeland Speaks, and probably McCole Hardman. Is that what you're thinking of?
Those are the three. They are not all three equal.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
McCole and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are not Breeland Speaks. Breeland Speaks was a mistake. They corrected the mistake by just simply saying, we're moving on. We're not going to try to put the square peg in the round hole. He shows up out of shape, doesn't have it. We missed. We're not going to keep trying to bang our head against the wall after we missed just to try to prove that, no, we spent that draft pick and we are going to show you that we knew what we were talking about, right? We're going to try to justify this. That's not the case with Breeland Speaks. They let him go. Edwards-Helaire and McCole Hardman have value on a 53-man roster. They just don't have first-round value and trading up in the second-round value.
Right.
McCole Hardman was largely, I think, underrated because the criticism was there that he was not DK Metcalf.
Yep.
And had you just held your water, you could have taken DK Metcalf, even with the circumstances that was going on with Tyreek Hill, that maybe there was a little bit of panic by Brett Veach and others that we got to get somebody that offers the skill set that we would be losing from Tyreek Hill if some of these things come out and he ain't on the team anymore. So McCole Hardman is the guy, and if we have to trade up to get those traits, we're going to do that. Those are the three most criticized draft picks by Brett Veach. But because McCole Hardman was criticized, I think he was dismissed in the other things he brought to the table. Edwards-Helaire criticized to the point that, people are saying, well, why don't you just release him? Well, no, he's an okay running back. I mean, he's fine.
And $2.5 million of his cap number this year is already paid money.
Yeah, he's fine.
If you trade him post June 1st, you can move a little bit. You can move the split, but he has a $1.35 million prorated bonus. That is literally paid. And then $1.2 million of his salary is guaranteed. That will be paid by somebody.
Yeah. So, I mean, Speaks, Edwards-Helaire, and Mecole Hardman are in different groups. I think Edwards-Helaire and Mecole Hardman are in one group. Speaks is in the other. Speaks is the one that just, stands out.
Yep.
And it was year number 1. And I think that was we have to get defensive end no matter what. And, okay, they're all off the board. We got to go get this guy because he's the last of whatever pocket of players that are there. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. I do want to weigh in a little bit more on a couple of things that Brett Veach said yesterday when he was talking about the first-round trade-up windows and also the overall philosophy about trading up or staying at the particular pick. And then I do have a little bit of pushback of the Howie Roseman love from the NFL draft that took place for the Eagles this past weekend. We'll do that coming up on the other side of the break. More Zone on this Tuesday edition. It's presented by Google Fiber.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, we'll continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Brett Veach talked yesterday. We played some the clips from it. Didn't get a much of a chance to really break down and get in depth on some of the things he was talking about. I do want to hear him weigh in on, it's been discussed, those windows for trading up that were there in the first round and maybe guys that they may have been targeting. But here's Brett Veach, the first round trade up windows, talking about that yesterday with the media.
I think the window just from 18 to say 22, 23 was just a little bit uncomfortable for us because, we do believe in our board, but at the same time, we do believe in obviously a volume of good players, and it's a long season. You have to have depth on both sides. So there was a lot of things we wanted to get accomplished this week. So we explored that, and when the price was a little bit too high for us, we still explored 24 to, 26, 27. At that time, no one wanted to trade. So we had a window there where we inquired, and again, the price was a little bit too high. And then after that, there was no teams, wanting to trade. These teams wanted to pick. There was a small move there from Buffalo and Jacksonville, but didn't get any feedback from the rest of those teams. So we were content because we had a player in Felix that we liked, and then we were able to do some maneuvering the next couple of days.
18 to 23, he mentioned there. 18 to 22, 23. At 18, the Lions took Jack Campbell. And at night, or even after New England at 17, took Christian Gonzalez. The Lions sitting there on the clock, and you wonder, they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. They traded their tight end. Are they looking for, they just went Gibbs. Are they looking for weapons offensively to help out Jared Goff? Tampa is there right after Detroit. Are they looking for offensive help? Probably not. Seattle at 20, they end up taking Jackson Smith and Jigba. And then we know about the Chargers, the Ravens, the Vikings. Using the Jerry Johnson model and then also the Rich Hill model.
Jimmy.
Using the Jimmy Johnson model.
Jerry Jimmy, actually. It's the Jerry Jimmy model.
Who is Jerry Johnson? I'm not sure.
It's all in the Cowboys.
That's right. Just a combination of you is a coach.
Exactly.
So the Jimmy Johnson model, to move up to 20, it would take the Chiefs' first and second round draft pick. Using the Rich Hill model, it would take the Chiefs' first and second round draft pick to move up to 20. Now, moving up to 18, it would take first, second, and fourth. Moving up to 19, it would be first, second, and fifth/sixth. You might get something back in that deal. Moving up to 20 is a first and a second round pick. Moving up to 21 is a first, a third, a fourth, and a sixth, according to Rich Hill. Jimmy, moving up to 21, is a first, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and then you would get a sixth back. You would eventually, essentially just swap picks there. 22 takes a first, a third, and a fourth. And 23 takes a first, a third, and 2/5 to move up those spots. Would it be worth it for the Chiefs to trade Felix and Udike Uzama and Wanya Morris along with what ended up being, let's say they move up to 22. Felix and Udike Uzama, because then Zay Flowers and Addison were still available. Mm-hmm. So FAU, Wanya Morris, and Shamari Connor to move up and get Zay Flowers. And then you've got your second round pick that you could take a running back, or excuse me, geez Louise, a tight end or a defensive. Jeez Louise, what am I talking about? Tight end.
We've got running backs on the brain, pass catchers.
No doubt, yeah. Tackle, or edge, if you want to go that route. He said it was a little too expensive because they had other needs they wanted to fill. We had other guys. We needed to stay true to our board, but we had other needs that we wanted to go and take place. If we wanted to get up to 18, 19, or 20, it would take our first and our second round pick. So now we're saying we've got Jackson Smith and Jigba and then Wanya Morris in the third round. You take those two as opposed to Rashee Rice, FAU, and Wanya Morris?
or if you make it 1-2 just for the sake of oversimplicity here, is the difference between Zay Flowers and Rashee Rice FAU? Is he? You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
And it's funny even looking at the board. If people are wondering like the different trade charts and everything, and now we even have like the PFF trade value charts.
Yeah.
Those the more modern models, they weight the value of higher picks a little bit less than the older models. If it's Rich Hill, and I think the Jimmy Jerry model predates the Rich Hill one, right? I think I have my timeline on that right.
Yep, Jimmy Jerry, and then the Rich Hill one was a hybrid that Bill Belichick talked about back in like 2018. That's been used, but there are different draft charts by different teams, which is what Brett Veach talked about last week in working ahead of the draft to see what chart these teams use.
And then each of these teams also are going to have values they're going to feel different in real time because players are landing there. The crazy thing to me is Detroit at 18 probably could have moved back a good while, maybe all the way to 31 and still gotten Jack Campbell.
Right.
I know that's a disconcerting thing to have to do if you're a team, but no true off-ball linebacker went in the first round other than Jack Campbell, and I don't think that he was a lock to do so. But my hunch at this point, without seeing any of these careers, is I would rather have more players. That's something else that Veach talked about in kind of that philosophical side of things of we want to trust our scouting, but we also know that it's kind of a lottery. You want to trust your scouting, but you want to have more opportunities to trust your scouting and then figure out where that balance is. And when you talk about the cost that it would have taken to go up and get your choice of wide receivers, especially once you started running in the teams who are charging a premium, not just because you were the big bad Chiefs, but because they liked the players available to them, it becomes pretty tough for me to argue that would have been good business.
Yeah, if you move up to 18, you're essentially saying, is Jackson Smith-Njigba is Jackson Smith-Njigba so much better than Rashee Rice that it's worth trading FAU and Shamari Connor for? And we don't know what Shamari Connor is going to look like.
Right.
Have no idea. But there's a chance he could be Snead, right? Because you've seen some fourth rounders in Joshua Williams and L'Jarius Sneed. Is it worth the chance and FAU at defensive end to get Smith-Njigba over Rashee Rice? Now, in a couple of years, that may sound like a laughable question.
It probably will. We just don't know why. We don't know which side it will seem laughable for.
That's a good point. It may seem like a laughable question because Rashee Rice has been bad, and FAU's been just a pass rusher, and Shamari Connor is a special teamer, and Smith-Njigba is an all-pro. Then it'd be like, well, of course you trade those picks. But when you're talking about lottery, when you're talking about getting more tickets, more darts at the dartboard, it wouldn't make sense to me if I'm Detroit and I'm trying to build and rebuild, and it would not make sense to me to value Jack Campbell at number 18 as opposed to picking up pick 31 and 63. So then in the first two rounds of the draft, you would have pick 12, 31, 34, and 63.
I would have rather have done that even if it wasn't Jack Campbell.
As opposed to maybe Jack Campbell is also, but an off-ball linebacker at pick number 18 when the Chiefs clearly inquired about it when he said the pocket was there from 18 to 22, 23. That means 18 was at least inquired about. Hey, what do you guys want to move back to 31? We got one. Maybe the Chiefs only offered one in 95. We'll give you a first and a third. We'll give you a fifth. Maybe we'll give you next year's third. And Detroit was like, we're going to need your second.
Yep.
It's too rich for us. You know, hey, if you guys want to move back, if you're willing to take the deal that's on the table for us, let us know. If not, we're gonna stay here.
I think that fictional conversation is probably good business by both sides.
Yeah.
Because if you're the Lions, once the draft pick got turned in, I had different feelings.
Yeah, when the Lions are like, we ain't giving up Jack Campbell, idiots.
Whoa, sorry? You're what?
Chiefs are trying to get hey, Dan, Chiefs are trying to get Jack Campbell from us. Yeah, like we're going to trade him. Idiots.
So let me give you the two boxes here. And one of these guys is on the roster either way, but you gotta fudge some of the math. If I gave you two doors, and one of them has Felix Anudike-Uzomah and Rashee Rice, and the other one has... Let's make it Zay Flowers, because I don't know if they prefer JSN or how they get up there. Door number 1's FAU and Rashee Rice. Door number 2 is Zay Flowers and B.J. Thompson, who the Chiefs drafted in the 5th round anyway. But I'm saying in this world, he's the edge they drafted first. So he's the guy that's got to get in that rotation this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to take FAU and Rice.
I would also.
Yeah.
I would too. And I was excited about Flowers. I didn't expect JSN to be in the conversation.
Because even if they draft Zay Flowers, I mean, to take door number 2, it would be completely going against what we have already talked about of rookie receivers and what they do in Andy Reid's offense, to then go, no, I'm going to take Zay Flowers over Rashee Rice because he's going to have 70 receptions and 900 yards and 5 touchdowns, and Rashee Rice may only have 25 and 250 and a couple of touchdowns. Is FAU going to be that much better than B.J. Thompson to see what Zay Flowers is going to offer you over Rashee Rice? No, if there's a level of expectation that's sort of capped on no matter which wide receiver comes into the Chiefs, unless their name is Jefferson or Chase or something like that, then I believe the FAU, the defensive end, is not capped in a rookie season because we saw what Karlaftis eventually became.
Yep.
And Sky Moore is sort of in line with other. And not to mention, if the New England Patriots want a wide receiver, I don't want that wide receiver in the draft, okay?
Crazy how that happens so fast.
But I'm not going out and doing much bragging about if the Chiefs want a wide receiver, that's the guy you go and get.
Yeah, true.
Because McColl has been fine, but they traded up to get him. Sky Moore has not been George Pickens.
Mm-hmm. Cornell Powell is the only other receiver taken, period.
If Rashee Rice ends up being worse than Marvin Mims or Josh Downs or Cedric Tillman, that's the one. Cedric Tillman's going to be the one I'm following closer than maybe others, especially when he went in the 3rd round. Not only later in the 2nd round, he was a 3rd round draft pick, like pick number 74. Heck, you could have traded back instead of trading up and still somehow landed, depending on how far, I mean, just a couple of picks back, whatever, and landed Cedric Tillman. Because we can have a conversation in a couple of years, because remember, they traded from 50 to 54 to get Sky Moore and pick number 158, which they then packaged 158 with a 7th rounder to get Kennard. We can have a conversation and say, what would you rather have, Sky Moore and Darian Kennard or George Pickens?
Right.
Well, right now, that's a no-brainer.
Yes.
Because it's a no-brainer, because if the Chiefs were trading up to get Rashee Rice because they felt those traits were something that they didn't have in the draft except for he was the last one, you had that in Pickens, and you could then hold your water for a Josh Downs, who's like Sky Moore, or a Marvin Mims, players that this draft was in excess of. So those are the questions like, well, trading down is always better. Not always. Because trading down from Sky Moore got you Darian Kennard, got you 2 darts. You gave up Pickens for those 2 darts. And Sky Moore may be good. I don't know that they'll get anything out of Kennard except for a rotational piece that you might be able to find off the street for like $1 million, $1.2 million, something like that.
Maybe he's Nick Allegretti.
Yeah.
Which has some value.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
But it's not the high end of the outcomes.
Yeah. And look, there are.
I would take that right now, actually. I'm not going to say it out loud.
Yeah. I mean, if all things are equal, if we say all things are equal and this player, that player, just what they're doing on the field. I remember back to Lucas Niang, and he was in the 3rd round, and people were like, hey, you know what? Trey Smith is a better one. Trey Smith is a better one because Trey Smith wasn't on people's draft boards.
Right.
And the Chiefs got him in the 6th round, and it was like, this is the steal of steals. This guy was a consensus big board. In fact, I remember writing it down. Let me find my notes real quick. This guy was a consensus big board of pick 72.
He went 226.
Is it Arif Hassan has the consensus big board?
Yes.
Was it The Athletic? Now he's at Pro Football Network.
Yes.
He does over 70 big boards of people in the industry, and he presents the consensus. Trey Smith was consensus pick number 72. That is 154 spots lower than what his consensus was because he wasn't on a lot of people's draft boards because of the injuries.
The Chiefs took Cornell Powell ahead of him.
Right. I mean, maybe Pickens wasn't on the Chiefs draft board.
Yeah. There was some talk of that around the time.
Right. They met with him. They brought him in, and that might have been, we talked about the linebacker from Tennessee that they brought in. And it was like, well, he got kicked off Tennessee. There was some domestic issues. They brought him in. He seems like a priority free agent, maybe a 7th rounder. They probably brought him in to get some questions answered. Maybe those questions were, He's not on our board.
Yep.
They brought George Pickens in, get some questions answered. Maybe they weren't on the board. But if we're strictly looking at player, like player for player, right now we would seem like, okay, you take Pickens' traits and what he can bring to the table as opposed to Sky Moore and Darian Kennard. It's also revisionist history because if you, I'm trying to think of, if you go back to 2019 and you don't move up to McCole Hardman, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather stay put, take DK Metcalf and the pick you gave up?
Right.
It doesn't matter who you take at that pick. Okay, that's the better deal. So trading up didn't work out there. Trading down, we don't know if it hasn't worked out yet. Pickens might be out of the league in 2 years, right? I mean, that might be. Nobody expects that with Sky Moore, correct? He seems like a salt of the earth, like a really good dude. So in a couple of years, if he's balling out and Kennard is a rotational piece, you go, you know what? You'd rather have that rotational offensive lineman and Sky Moore rather than Pickens. But it does have a domino effect to where if you had a player like Pickens' traits in the second round last year without Kennard, do you hold your water at 63 and you keep the fourth rounder that you had and you take a Josh Downs to fill Sky Moore's spot and Pickens is filling the Rashee Rice role and you may have somebody else there in the fourth round?
Which is at least is kind of like a slight spinoff back into why the Chiefs being lower on the consensus big board comparisons this year has not bothered me in the way that I would have expected it to if I would have just known the ending, right?
And by the way, lower is massively lower.
Yeah,
than the consensus big board. It's a night and day stark contrast from 21 and 22's draft to what it is this year with the consensus big board. I'm talking about like 100, 130, 52 spots earlier than what the consensus big board is, as opposed to last year and the year before when it was like, wow, they got these guys later.
And last year this was also more or less the case of where they ended up positionally. But because these guys are at these premium positions, you can be having the thing that jogs it is this idea of if you take George Pickens and you see that growth there, then could you stay at 63? Now you have another pick instead of trading up for Rashee Rice. There are so many dominoes that fall with all of this that there is extra value that's very hard to talk about in advance with just being very thoughtful and purposeful about what you're investing in long term to build the foundation of your team. And it's why last year's draft class is more important than the individual names even, because there are so many guys here. In the 7th round, they got Jalen Watson, Isaiah Pacheco, and Najee Johnson. They got a really good young corner, a starting number 1 running back, and a guy who's a special teamer at absolute worst, and we'll see if he is anything beyond that.
And you know what? When you say George Pickens as opposed to Kennard or Sky Moore, what you would also throw in is George Pickens and another 7th rounder.
True, right.
Because they gave up a 7th rounder and 158 to move up and get Kennard. They would have had four 7th round draft picks. And 3 of them, one was your starting running back in the Super Bowl, another one was your starting cornerback in the Super Bowl, and another one was a special teamer that played, 13, 14 games last year.
And the number of just like connective gears there, I'm obviously not saying, hey, trade your first round pick and own this 7th round, then just go ahead and own day 3.
Why are you saying trade your first rounder for 50 7th round picks?
I would be curious if they could just get, as much, maximize your day 3 assets and just see what happens.
It's the exact opposite of the Rams. It's not bleep those picks.
Right.
It's give me those 7th rounders.
It's we want to bleep those picks. But I think it's fascinating to see how all of those things intermingle because it allows you to take a different look at the overall health of your roster. So we talked about yesterday, these rookies do not have to start. Maybe they're not home run swings, but they're swinging for doubles. Well, because every year you can hold your water a little longer and say, we have competence at these places. It's why re-signing Derek Nottie and Tershawn Wharton was a really good thing, because Derek Nottie, Tershawn Wharton, and B.J. Thompson, and Keandre Coburn, all sort of battling for some interior defensive lineman spots, more Nottie and Coburn.
Yeah.
That kept the Chiefs from having to go get Mozzie Smith because he's the only solution we have to a starting defensive tackle this year. Roster health is measured by more than just the ceilings, but obviously the ceiling of the team is ultimately what gets you to a Super Bowl. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes, ceiling's pretty high.
Speaking of consensus big board, Timo Riske from Pro Football Focus, he did a study about using the consensus big board and, quote, reaches and steals.
Yeah.
So when teams reach and they have a significant higher pick than what the consensus big board is, as opposed to a steal, which is they're picking that player pretty low. Like Trey Smith was a steal.
Right.
People would view this year
DeJuan Jones, Jalen Hyatt.
Shamari Connor would be
for the Chiefs. Cool.
a reach. Shamari Connor was 136 spots chosen, 136 spots higher than what the consensus big board. Consensus big board had Shamari Connor at 245.
Chiefs were considering him in the third round.
126, sorry, not 126. He went 119. Consensus was 245. That would be viewed as a reach. He did a study on reaches and steals. Do the steals perform at an expected level?
Yeah.
Do the reaches fail at an expected level? I want to do that and look at that on the other side of the break, and also the sort of the pushback on the Howie Roseman love. He's a really, really good GM.
Why do you hate Howie Roseman?
No, he's a good GM. I mean, the
Jason
guy
hates Howie Roseman. More next.
If your name is Howie, I got a beef with you. We'll take a timeout. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter.
the study we were talking about with Timo Riske from Pro Football Focus. R-A-S-K-E. Riske.
He's German. I don't know how that changes the pronunciation.
Oh,
He's PFF_Moo on Twitter. That I can spell every time.
Perfect. So he looked at the consensus big board and did a study on players that were reaches and steals based on whether you drafted them well ahead of what the consensus says or you got them later than what the consensus says. So, reaches and steals. His conclusion was that it turns out players who were supposed to be reaches indeed underperformed their expectations based on the draft selection. He also says a player's true value turns out to be somewhere between what the draft position and the big board ranks would imply. So it's somewhere between, like when there's a larger gap, it's like, wow, you took this player pick 119 and everybody else had him at pick 160 as a consensus. Well, then they're probably somewhere around 130. 120, 130 is kind of the consensus there. But he also says it also turns out that steals perform just as expected based on the draft position, implying the big board rank overvalued those players.
So they perform not as expected as quote-unquote steals,
They
but
perform
as their draft slot
as expected as their draft slot.
Interesting.
So reaches typically underperformed to their draft slot. Steals typically performed at their draft slot. But it wasn't like these steals like, wow, you got him as this, like Nolan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Patrick Queen to the Ravens a couple of years ago, right? Yep. They didn't pick up a fifth-year option on Patrick Queen, did the Ravens? They're walking after this year. But he was a steal in the draft. He wasn't supposed to be there. Nolan Smith and Miles Murphy were steals in the draft this year, right?
Yes.
They weren't supposed to be there.
Right.
Maybe they will be. But the study over a course of years, right, is that, typically there are certainly outliers because DK Metcalf was a guy who was a steal and has been viewed as a steal.
Mm-hmm.
He was a steal at the time, and he's been a steal throughout his career. Those are things to keep in mind. I bring that up because I looked at the Chiefs with with Brett Veach and the 21, 22, and 23 drafts because this year was a lot of overdrafting, reaches. FAU was 15 spots higher than what the consensus. Rashee Rice was 21 spots. Wanya Morris was 36 spots. Shamari Connor was 136 spots. B.J. Thompson was 122 spots. Nick Jones was 20 spots. Keandre Coburn was 18 spots on the good. So you got him 18 spots ahead of where the consensus big board said. There's a lot of negatives there with the reaches. In 21, 22, and 23, you want to guess who the biggest steal is for the Chiefs based on consensus and where they drafted him? We've already mentioned it.
In 21 and 22?
Yeah. And even 23.
Well, Trey Smith definitely in 21 would have been the biggest steal by draft board.
By a large margin. He is plus 154. Without Trey Smith based on injuries, who has been the biggest steal for the Chiefs that the consensus board said he should not be here, and the Chiefs drafted him there, and it's like they got incredible value. This is a steal. We've talked about him a few times, actually a lot over the last 10 minutes or so.
Last 10 minutes or so. I kind of want to say Brian Cook, but I don't really remember him getting like late first round hype.
Cook was the exact opposite. Cook was 25 spots to the negative.
Okay.
Cook was consensus 87. He went pick number 62.
People were yoked about Chanel, but I don't think that was a big board steal.
It was 42 spots better, so that was actually a pretty good.
Okay.
Yep. Actually, Chanel.
Oh, was it Darian Kennard?
Kennard.
Okay.
Darian Kennard
that makes sense. All right.
was taken 79 spots lower than what the consensus big board was.
Yeah.
Second best, Jalen Watson, 49 spots lower than what the consensus big board was, so 49 selections to the good. Leo Chanel, 42 selections to the good.
Okay.
And then the next best, Cornell Powell. So it's not a exact science when you're saying, boy, they got some steals here.
Yeah.
And the example I would bring up with Howie Roseman is, I was thinking about this. They're saying he playing chess, not checkers with Nolan Smith. They got a great, it seems like a great selection with Nolan Smith at that spot. but it feels like a man sitting on a bench with a basket of pillows next to him, and a baby falls from a tree and lands in the basket, and people go, what a hero. You're a hero. Like, yeah, I am. Look, I'm totally a hero. I saved this baby. Howie Roseman got Nolan Smith at pick 30. He is playing chess, not checkers. Because he sat there at 30?
Big Georgia Bulldog, basket of pillows.
That's right. I mean, he's a really good GM. But would Brett Veach be playing chess, not checkers if the Eagles didn't take him?
Spring. The sounds of birds in the trees, smell of fresh cut grass, new decks being built, and new deck builders from all over town